When Ellen died, I lost everything. Until that dog arrived on my doorstep. A final gift from my wife. In that moment, I received some semblance of hope. And your son took that from me. Stole that from me. Killed that from me! People keep asking if I'm back. And I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Operation. We don't need bigger knife.
Welcome to Now Playing's John Wick retrospective series.
To him, this isn't vengeance. This is justice.
Hosted by Justin.
You wanted me back. I'm back.
Jason.
Are you here on business, sir? Afraid so, Francis.
And Arnie.
You look good. And here I'd feared you'd left all this behind.
These podcasts contain detailed plot spoilers and harsh language.
So I guess you have a choice. You want a war? Or do you want to just give me a gun?
Listener discretion is advised.
We're not going in like the old days. It's just a conversation.
Nothing's ever just a conversation with you, John.
We're killing strangers so we don't kill the ones who we love.
Today we're discussing the Continental from the World of John Wick, starring Mel Gibson, Colin Woodell, Michelle Prada, Ben Robson, directed by Albert Hughes and Charlotte Brandstrom. This is the Now Playing co-host who doesn't look good in an ascot, but looks great in a cravat, Arnie.
This is Justin.
And I'm Jason.
Jason, welcome to the show. Longtime listeners and careful listeners know Jason because he has been on our Halloween movie reviews when we reviewed that new trilogy of movies. You were at the conventions and reporting in and following those movies so loyally, and we had you on talking about those. You also did some book reviews with Jacob.
Yep, those were good times. And I'm very happy to be here.
Well, you're coming in here at a good point with John Wick. Now, Justin, and when Jacob was with the show, reviewed the first 4 John Wick films. What are your thoughts on that quadrilogy, that arc of Keanu's?
Yeah, I didn't see the first Wick in theaters. I caught it on streaming on a recommendation from a friend of mine about 6 months later. The first movie's amazing, and I've seen all of them in theaters since. I recommend them all. I recommend them for a lot of the same reasons you guys do. My only criticisms of maybe 3 and 4 are just going a little bit too long in terms of runtime. But overall, I really enjoy the universe. I'm excited about the EU. I read parts, not the entire series, of the John Wick comic book when it came out. And I was excited when I heard the announcement of the Continental. I don't know if you guys remember when they announced this.
There was a long production period and discussion about this and the announcement. They started working on this back in 2017, around the time of John Wick 3. And Derek Kolstad, who was the writer who created John Wick, and Chad Stahelski, who directed Wick, started thinking about a prequel and other ways they could spin it off. But it finally got announced in 2021, post-COVID, when they said, and we have our star, everybody's favorite, Mel Gibson.
I think, should we go around and kind of gauge how everybody feels about Mel Gibson? I mean, we could start with Arnie. You're like me, you're a Lethal Weapon fan.
Yeah, like so many people in Hollywood, I believe he's a shit person who can make some good films and who I can enjoy watching on camera. And I think people have kind of, I guess, forgiven him his anti-Semitism and his sugar tits rant and said, hey, we're still going to think about giving you an Oscar for Hacksaw Ridge. I mean, his public shaming turned him into a weird character that hangs out behind the cameras a lot. And when he does appear on film, it's often these days kind of as a menacing presence. He's now playing the villain, or in those Daddy's Home movies where he's playing kind of the threatening grandfather. But nobody rose up in protest when he showed up in Daddy's Home 2, much to my shock. I kind of thought people would have bigger reactions to it, but I'm not going to hate on something just because he's involved in it, but I don't like the man. I wouldn't want to share a drink with him either.
Yeah, no, I feel pretty much the same way. Like, he was good to great in a few things back in the day, but I would never say I was a Mel Gibson fan. I don't think he ever got me out to a theater just because his name was on it. But yeah, recently it feels like anytime his name pops up, it's for some shitty thing he did or said. I don't know how he survived the criticism and just kind of continued on. Maybe he's Teflon, but when I see his name pop up, my first instinct is to be like, yeah, that's not great, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it comes down basically to what we've talked about when discussing mostly directors. You know, when we talk about Roman Polanski, how you have to separate the art from the artist. It feels easier to do when the artist is behind the camera instead of shoving his $1 million grin in your face. But let me just go out on a limb and say I think Mel Gibson is a good enough actor that I forget it's Mel Gibson most of the time when I'm watching him in a role. If I'm thinking of him as Mel Gibson, it's already failed. Here, I didn't think about Mel Gibson a lot. I thought about Cormac O'Connor, the character he plays. So I think he can still dive into a role that way.
I have to say I was a little surprised when they announced this, and I remember the announcement to come out and say that our star of the series is going to be Mel Gibson. It's box office poison for television. And you mentioned when they announced the show, Arnie, this was in the era of peak streaming. This is when all of the Netflixes and the Maxes, everybody needed, you guys know the term, a killer application. They needed something to get people onto their service. The Mandalorian. Ted Lasso does it for Apple TV. This was Peacock's swing to do a John Wick prequel and then add Mel Gibson in as a cast. It's almost like, hey, we've got a big announcement and we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot right away.
Yeah, this wasn't even supposed to be for Peacock. It was supposed to be made for Starz, and it got sold to Peacock. And Mel Gibson is the biggest name involved here. I mean, when we look at the showrunner, Greg Coolidge, I looked him up and it's like, you're giving your John Wick franchise to the writer of Sorority Boys, that Harlan Williams, Michael Rosenbaum cross-dressing film, and the writer-director of the Jessica Simpson, Dax Shepard vehicle Employee of the Month. It seemed like an interesting choice there, but he has been on a lot of things that didn't get made. I'm guessing that he just impressed people with his ideas and not necessarily the stuff he actually put out.
Yeah, not a lot of credits that I recognize much of in any of these creators' resume.
Well, you know whose credit I recognized was Albert Hughes, who's directing a couple of these episodes. And I don't know if you remember, Albert Hughes, Alan Hughes together, they were part of a wave of black directors that got noticed really in the early 90s. Guys that came up after Spike Lee, John Singleton, probably the most famous one that people know, Ernest Dickerson, Carl Franklin, Rusty Cundieff, who did Tales from the Hood. The Hughes brothers did Menace to Society and Dead Presidents. Then they went on to do the Johnny Depp picture From Hell, the adaptation that I hope that we get to someday. We could discuss as part of our comic book series. But I had a lot of faith in him, especially when they said this is going to be a late 70s setting. I love New York City in the late 70s on film. I wasn't alive for it, but movies like The Warriors, Cruising, those are great movies. And I'm not even talking just about dramas or action movies. I love Tootsie. That's there in the early 1980s. So I was excited about seeing a show that was set in this era, what I thought was going to be the birth of the Continental. I'm not quite sure that this is the show that I thought it was going to be.
Were you excited for this, either of you? Because I've got to be honest, these days I am exhausted by television spin-offs of movie series and franchises deciding they have to be on every platform. Marvel, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, everything has to be on all platforms at all times. And so when they announced they were doing a John Wick television series and that Stahelski wasn't directing and Keanu wasn't involved at all, nobody from the movie series was really involved outside of like being a producer, I kind of just shrugged. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention when this came out. I was kind of listening to feedback on our Facebook page and things to see what people said about it, and I heard it was okay-ish, and so I never really felt like I was tempted to check this out. And then I knew we would be covering it for the show, so I definitely wasn't going to watch it voluntarily on my own.
And I think pretty much my thesis on the last John Wick movie was, hey, yeah, I still like this. I've enjoyed it, but it does feel like they're stretching it. Like, I feel like John Wick was a great idea for a movie, and they somehow managed to get 4 movies out of it that were all enjoyable to some degree. But I'm not sitting here in a world where I'm itching for more in this world. When I heard about this, I was like, oh, great. More in the John Wick world, but this time without John Wick. Okay, let's see where they go with this.
Yeah, you hit on the biggest question that I had kind of going into this. It's a question to myself of how much EU do I really need? And we have EU for every franchise that we've ever covered. And I can say that back in the day, I read Star Wars books. In the 90s, I read Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales of the Bounty Hunters. And those are the kind of things that I thought about when this show started to unfold and when I thought about how I'm going to analyze it for this recording. Is it necessary for me to know the backstory of these minor characters in a show in order for me to have a more enjoyment of the John Wick series overall?
Yeah, and the fact that I knew this was going to be backstory for Winston, who is a character I've really liked in the movies, played by Ian McShane. I feel like his character really got fleshed out well over the course of those movies. He was one of the more interesting ones who played both sides, but was kind of the father figure to John Wick. But do I need to see his rise to power? And I suppose you could say that about any sequel or even any story. Do I need to hear this tale? It all comes down to the telling. It all comes down to the storyteller and the performers involved, but it's not like I was left wandering throughout 4 John Wick movies. Tell me more about that Winston and how he got a manager job at a hotel.
You mentioned 4 movies. We got 3 movies now that we're dissecting tonight.
Yeah, pretty much. But Arnie, real quick, yeah, you brought it up. I liked the character of Winston in the first movies too. But if I really stop and think about it, I think I just liked Ian McShane in that role. So am I chomping at the bit for somebody else to take over that realm?
That's an excellent point to make. And who is this actor? Had either of you guys heard of him before? Colin Woodell.
I hadn't. I guess I've seen him. I saw Fly Me to the Moon in theaters last year, and he was Buzz Aldrin on it. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to Buzz in that movie. It wasn't a movie for the astronauts. It was more focused on the people behind the astronauts. So I've seen him in that. And I watched the Purge TV series, so I've seen him in that too. But I don't know him. He's never stood out to me as one to watch.
Yeah, same here. I didn't know who he was, and looking at his list of movies, I recognize a few of them. I recognize that ambulance movie that came out in the height of the pandemic that I never saw.
It's a Michael Bay movie.
Oh yeah, I saw that one too. And I saw the second Unfriended film. I don't know why, because the first Unfriended film was shit. I don't know why I went back for more. It's like, oh, I hit my thumb with a hammer. Let me do that a second time. But I saw it.
So we don't know any of these actors besides Mel Gibson. And now we're going in. All right.
And yeah, you mentioned, Jason, that we are covering 3 movies. It's kind of weird how they released this. They announced this was going to be a 10-episode series, and it became a 3-episode series. And I'm like, well, is this like RoboCop Prime Directives? Are we going to have 3 reviews out of this? I mean, it actually may be more like RoboCop Prime Directives than I want it to be. But is this 3 separate movies that comprise a trilogy? Or is this a TV series that was just 3 episodes long and each episode was about 90 minutes? And having watched it, yeah, I think it's more the latter. I mean, I don't feel like there's a cohesive story that takes place in each one. It is one arc from the beginning. I thought when I started this that maybe the first episode would take place in the early 70s, the second episode in the mid 70s, like it might be different eras of Winston's ascension. But no, this whole thing takes place in a few days, so it's definitely one miniseries, one series, however you want to look at it.
Well, the different eras thing sounds like a much better pitch. I kind of would have bought into that one. I suppose that means we should just start talking about what we're here to talk about. Arnie, why don't you give him the plot?
The Continental takes place in 1970s New York City and tells the story of how Winston Scott, played by Ian McShane in the films but played by Colin Woodell here, rose to power and became manager of the Continental, the only 5-star hotel that is assassin-friendly. I don't even think you have to pay an extra cleanup fee. The story starts in the 1950s when Winston and his brother Frankie were poverty-stricken boys who start working for crime lord Cormac O'Connor, played by Mel Gibson. It's nice to know Mel has such range. He can play anything, including O'Connor. He can be Irish, or he can be Scottish as Braveheart, or he can be Australian with Mad Max.
We're going to talk about Mel's accent, the lack of one and the one he tries.
The boys got caught torching an apartment and Frankie took the fall. Frankie went to prison and upon his release went to fight in Vietnam. Then as an adult, he came back to work for Cormac, who was now the head of the Continental Hotel. Winston, on the other hand, was sent overseas where he grew up in privilege and became a wealthy con artist. Things take a turn when Frankie betrays Cormac and steals a prized gold coin press, one of the rarefied boxes that make the gold coins that are currency in the assassin's world. Cormac is given 3 days by the high table to get the box back. Thinking Winston may know where Frankie is hiding, Cormac has Winston abducted from London and brought to New York. Though Winston doesn't know Frankie's location, he goes on a hunt to find his brother to help him escape from Cormac. His search leads him to Chinatown, where he meets gun-running siblings Lou, played by Jessica Elaine, and her brother Miles, played by Hubert Point du Jour, and their friend Lemmy, played by Adam Shapiro. Miles and Frankie served together in the war. Winston eventually finds Frankie and Frankie's Vietnamese wife Yen. Winston tries to help his brother escape, but Cormac's mercenaries are on their tail. Frankie sacrifices himself so Winston and Yen can escape, but Frankie has hidden the coin press. In episode 2, Winston swears to avenge his brother by killing Cormac. He tries to assemble an army by meeting with Maisie, the Bowery Queen, and also meeting with Cormac's right-hand man, Charon, who was played by Lance Riddick in the movies, but is played here by Iomide Edgun. Cormac has long promised to bring Charon's father over from Nigeria, lording that over his assistant. Charon was also good friends with Frankie, so Charon helps Winston take down Cormac. They also recruit aging sniper Gene, played by Ray McKinnon. During all this, we have 2 other subplots going on. Don't know how much they matter. The first is Lou trying to find out about her father, who she didn't know was an assassin. She thought he, a black man, built a dojo in Chinatown, but it's revealed by the crime lord called Orphan Master that her dad was an assassin who killed the dojo's owner, and then her father took it over.
You say that like everybody wasn't kung fu fighting at the time.
You know what? I take it back, because John Saxon and Jim Kelly were kicking ass in Enter the Dragon, so you may be right. But the Orphan Master takes the dojo back by force, and Lou uses C4 to blow up the dojo with Orphan Master in it. Also, we're following 2 cops, Katie De Silva, played by Michelle Prada, and her boss Mayhew, played by Jeremy Bobb. I say these actors' names as if you might know them because they have wiki links, so maybe you do. The 2 cops are sleeping together despite the fact that Mayhew is married. While investigating the gun runners, De Silva gets inside the Continental. Then, when she discovers Frankie is dead, she spends much of the miniseries trying to find Winston. It turns out that De Silva was the survivor of the apartment fire Frankie and Winston started as kids that got them arrested. The series ends in a big shootout in the Continental, how could it not? Cormac hits a red button that allows for killing in the hotel and puts a bounty on Sharon and Winston. But De Silva captures Winston and prepares to set him on fire. She's wounded by Sniper Gene, and Winston goes back to shooting tons of mercs. Lenny is killed by some of the mercs, but most of the people survive, and it comes down to Winston and Cormac fighting in the subway, with Cormac having activated the hotel's self-destruct. In the subway, Cormac reveals he knew there was a family in the building he had Frankie and Winston torch. De Silva overhears this and forgives Winston, shooting and killing Cormac. Winston deactivates the hotel's self-destruct in just the nick of time, and he reveals he's had the gold coin press this entire time, and he kills one of the high table's adjudicators to get the high table's attention. He declares himself owner and operator of the Continental, and he overlooks the big city as credits roll.
So, yeah, both of you guys kind of said going into this you had some idea of what setting and era we were going to be in. I didn't. All I knew is that this was going to be a prequel to some degree. And when we hop in, we get black and white footage of 1955. And I'm like, whoa, we're really going to be starting way back here. We're going to follow Winston from childhood up until the start of John Wick, maybe. I thought we were going to get like a whole lifetime span here. But it's very quickly apparent that these are just going to be little pastiches peppered in to tell a bigger story later. We're actually set in the 70s here.
Yeah, it's going to be a mystery that's meted out. It actually is a mystery that unfolds on several levels, because we have this one mystery where we meet Winston and his older brother Frankie in a police interrogation room, and Frankie is saying, "Don't say anything, Winston. I did it. I did it." And we're like, well, what did he do? It's going to take all 3 episodes for that to come out. And I already spoiled it in the plot summary. The fact that De Silva has such a hard-on for finding Winston, and you're like, what does De Silva want with Winston, is also a big question mark that all ties into these flashbacks.
And won't be revealed until the finale. So, it's a 4.5-hour miniseries. We have to wait for the last part. What I thought was interesting is when they set up the brothers, and they're going to set up their arc after they commit this crime, they follow the same path as John Wick. They are orphans who are taken in by a criminal mastermind or a crime syndicate, and then pushed into a life of crime. And that's what we're going to find out. So even the origin story is slightly similar.
Good point. I hadn't put that together. That said, calling them orphans is so questionable because so much of this backstory is going to be about their mother, who we're going to find out raised them and worked cleaning floors of a bank for them and hid them in the trunk of a car while she went to work every day. And they took odd jobs for Cormac to bring in extra money. While Cormac was definitely a father figure, we don't hear much at all about Frankie and Winston's father other than he was abusive and mean. But where was he? I mean, literally, physically, where was he? And where did the mother go? What happened to them when these kids were becoming these lackeys of Cormac's? It's hard to say, but yeah, it is definitely similar in that way, like you say.
But we skip through that very quickly. It's only a few minutes, that scene in New York City in 1955. And then we go to the club. The club.
We all fam. Yes, it is the New Year's Eve party at the Continental, and we're following Frankie. And this makes me think Frankie's going to be our main player. Like, maybe this whole trilogy is going to be about Frankie, and at the end, something happens to Frankie, and Winston ascends. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to watch or how much of it will be Winston's story. But Frankie seems to be all the rage as he's walking through this party in this long tracking shot, and everybody's calling to him. He's talking to all the staff, and he even stopped by Mel Gibson's table for a brief moment to show us Mel's big chompers, and Mel's gonna say, I raised Frankie and I taught Frankie, and Frankie keeps on moving.
We get the idea from this opening scene that Frankie is at least somebody who's not only accepted in the Continental, but big enough or important enough to have FaceTime with the head guy, the boss, but he's also up to something. And they establish pretty quickly that this is in the John Wick world, because we get some very, and I might even argue the only John Wickish gunfighting that we're going to get in this series right up front.
This opening, it hits pretty fast. You know, as Frankie's going through, he goes through the club and then into the subway as the countdown to midnight is on. Walking through New York, am I the only one who thought he looked a little bit like Jared Leto in Morbius?
The long stringy hair, is it a goatee or a mustache?
You're close. I thought he looked like one of the guys in Bush with the long hair. I can't remember if that guy plays bass or guitar. But you know what I actually like about this scene is we're getting a look inside the Continental, almost room to room. Now, I had no idea that the Continental had a nightclub. They actually shot that at Cipriani in Manhattan, which is kind of a restaurant event space brand. But you get to see he's going through the hallways. He's going to go past the vault, and that there's something in the vault. That's where the action really kind of kicks in.
Yeah, they've got some real elaborate plan where they're going into the subway where they have a grappling hook hanging, because when the subway car hits the hook, it's going to have such force, and that cable has such towing capacity, it's going to rip the door off the vault through like the cement of the hotel floor, through the subway, and give Frankie and Frankie's unnamed partner, I watched with subtitles on, and I watched the scene twice to see if this partner has a name. Couldn't get a name for him, but these two get into the vault right there.
Yeah, and there's some precision planning going on here, too. It's like you said, Arnie, they have this immaculate Rube Goldberg setup going on, but they also have it timed to blow the lock directly at midnight on New Year's Eve when the fireworks are going off outside, so people won't necessarily hear that explosion, and this train just happens to be going by at the exact time, so people aren't going to hear that noise. They almost got away with it until one guy who happened to be in the hallway saw Frankie and questioned him, and that's when the gunfight starts.
And yeah, how do you guys think this compares to John Wick? It definitely feels like it's trying to be kind of John Wickish gun fu, but it's really short. Frankie shoots a fire extinguisher. There's a lot of shooting, but I just don't feel like at any point does it have the ballet type choreography that I'm used to seeing Keanu do.
No, they don't. But they try. They try little camera tricks. They have Frankie standing at the subway. It's a very slow shot. He stands out among the crowd of all the people. And I think this is our guy. This guy's going to be the action guy, because this guy looks like he could kick some ass. We'll get to the guy who plays Winston. It's a little bit the opposite.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, Arnie, that they're trying to do John Wick here, I think they're doing it decently, but what is obviously missing is Keanu's love for this character that he always seems to bring, because he always wants to bring that realism in. We've seen the behind the scenes stories where he's talking about how many bullets would be in this type of clip, and he's always looking for that type of thing to be on screen. Here, I feel like they're just throwing that type of stuff to the side and saying, look at the spectacle on screen. That's what we're bringing to you.
And I'm going to throw one thing out here at the very beginning, because we may end up talking about it a lot in this show. I had a lot of notes on the music that's going on here. We start with I Feel Love, which is a terrific disco song, but it kind of puts you in the era. So that's to let us know that this is happening. I thought it was about 79, 80. That's where I tried to add up the music, things like that. I'm not quite sure that all the math adds up when you go back to the John Wick movies and you try to say, John Wick 3, Winston says, I've been in charge of this hotel for more than 40 years. Then it doesn't add up that way. But I think that they really try to pinpoint the era using the music. And there are times when I like it. And then there are times where I feel it's Kong Skull Island, if you get that reference.
I mean, yeah, you said we'll talk about it throughout, but to me, it's one high point. I like a lot of the selections they make. There's a lot of Santana going on in here, and it's all period accurate. It's one of my favorite things is to juxtapose violence on screen with a song that doesn't necessarily go with it. And they do that quite a few times here. I think it's a good choice.
So we have Frankie and his partner. They're ripping off the bank vault. That subway scene is actually pretty remarkable, the way that they catch the grappling hook onto the subway car. It yanks the vault door open. Do any of us have any idea what they're going to pull out of this vault?
No, I had no idea what's going on. I assumed they were going for money. I mean, that's what you normally take from a vault, but it does seem like they're after something specific. In fact, Frankie even says, we're not here for the gold. And as he says that is when his partner betrays him, and the two of them have some gunfighting, and, you know, their machine gun fire lets the people in the Continental know, oh, there's people shooting beneath us.
I had no idea what they're going for, but I'll hand it to the writers. They picked a MacGuffin that is very perfect for this world. The gold coin press. This whole underground is fueled by these coins, and they're your pass to whatever you need. Why not go straight to the source and get the press that makes these?
But what is he going to do with it? That is a thing that I've wondered from the jump.
And even having watched this whole series, I'm not entirely sure the orchestrations, because we're going to find out Frankie was hired to do this job and then betrayed by his partner. Was it the high table trying to bring down Cormac? that hired Frankie to do this job?
I have a lot of questions about how the High Table acts in this series. I knew who they are, what they do in the John Wick films. This series, no, I'm not quite sure about that.
If I'm being generous to the movie, I will say that Frankie's plan was to take the press to get the High Table involved to bring down Cormac. But that's not explicitly said on screen.
No, because he talks to his wife, Yen, later on, saying he was supposed to get paid and get enough money that they could escape Cormac and escape this life.
What is Cormac holding over him?
Well, I think everything, it's Frankie's entire life is dedicated to Cormac. And also, we're told Frankie was using dope until he met his wife and then got clean, but might be using again. A lot of motivation for Frankie is unclear to me. But while there's shooting is going on, we're going to get notice. Invictus on Continental grounds, the red light has been activated. What does that exactly mean? Well, we know from the movies killing is not allowed in the Continental, but now the TV series is going to add well, unless we flip this switch, then kill away.
You could not have a series called The Continental. You could not have it take place in the Continental, even though a lot of it doesn't. But you couldn't have the primary action scenes take place in this hotel with the High Table's so strict rules. You can't do that.
Well, yeah, but it also shrinks the world of John Wick, right? Before, when an Invictus went out, it was worldwide. We'd see people getting it on devices all over the place. And we saw the control room with the 1950s style operators and stuff sending it out. Here, we've got to keep it contained to the hotel where all the assassins are, pretty much.
Are they all assassins? Do I have a question about that? You've got a huge New Year's Eve party. Are these people all killers? Is everybody in the Continental throughout this series an assassin?
Yes.
Because there are times when they act like they are, but then there are times when it feels like it's not.
Hey, assassins have to party too, but I think that when episode 3 happens and this red light goes on again, and you get a shot of the kitchen, and the dishwashers are pulling out weapons, and the chef has weapons, and the sous chefs all have weapons, I think everybody, you want to be a bellman in our hotel? How is your target practice? I mean...
Yeah, everybody's on board.
But Frankie's gonna jump out a window, like a 6-story window, land in a pile of garbage, and be picked up by a Vietnamese woman in a yellow cab. We're gonna find out this is his wife, Yen, who he met in Vietnam. We're gonna get to see that in a flashback in episode 2. And then we get our opening credits finally. We had quite a prologue before that happened with this first episode.
And as the opening credits wrap, we take into London, where we are introduced to Winston, who appears to be a young man, maybe early 30s, I would say he's supposed to be in here.
Seems about right. Indiscriminate. I could say anywhere from 27 to mid-30s, yeah.
I mean, if we go by the age of the actor, he's 33 now, so that would make him, 31 when this was filmed, so... And if he was maybe 12 when it all went down in the 50s, that would kind of fit with being about 30-ish somewhere in the 70s, so yeah. And I gotta say, the way that this series starts does keep me guessing, what the hell are you doing? What is this series going to be? Because we had that big action scene with Frankie, and now we see Winston selling parking garages, car parks in London to an entrepreneur.
Yeah, Patrick Bergen from Sleeping with the Enemy. It's been a minute since I've seen him on screen. That's the other actor that I recognize here. But yeah, they introduce Winston, and he's sort of a con man, handsome rogue type fella. He has the ascot, so we're not going to get the origin of the ascot, which is great. This isn't Solo. We're not going to explain every little thing. But, here he is. He's trying to charm this man using the man's wife, Patrick Bergen's wife, to help him do his little work there.
I think what he's doing, Arnie, is he's trying to get investment in his project, which is building car parks. I don't think he's actually trying to sell it. I think he's trying to scam an investment off of this rich guy.
Right, yeah. I mean, yes, he's trying to say he's building car parks and that they're a good investment and that this guy should invest £2 million into it, and that David Bowie's business manager, Tony DeFries, is involved, and so you should be, and he's going to call Tony on the phone to talk to Davenport's wife and say how much they should invest in everything. And yeah, it is all a scam. And in fact, the wife knows her husband so much, she knows the trick is to walk out of the room saying, do not invest. And that will push her husband into giving Winston the money.
So we set Winston up as this kind of con man. And that's what I'm looking at. Now I'm thinking to myself, okay, so he's a schemer, but he's a handsome schemer. He dresses well. This is what we're going to see throughout the show. And we'll get to it, but do you see him employing these con man skills throughout the series? Because I don't. I feel like this is an introduction to a character, and they're going to change that character immediately when he gets kidnapped and brought back to the United States.
Well, I don't know about conning, but being convincing and using his words. I think we do see that skill set a couple times throughout where he's going to bring people on board by talking them into it.
Yeah, he's a smooth talker. He's a planner. He's a leader. He's the brain man behind this con. And I guess he's also kind of sexy because Miss Rosalind isn't just in on the scam. She's also in Winston's bed.
Well, right up until some masked men come in and snag him and drag him away.
I know we want to get Winston to New York. I know there's plot reasons. But you gotta think, if somebody who you are a father figure to robs you, the first person to go to wouldn't be the other guy who you're a father figure to, who you know has been in London and hasn't talked to his brother in 20 years, and abduct him and put him on that 12-hour red-eye from London. I just assume he has a bag over his head the entire time.
Like, wait, he doesn't know where he's going.
Right. So he can't figure out from the turns and bridges and everything they go over. This brings up the problem that I've had with John Wick travel in the past, where it's just like, they're magically in the next country. It's like, we're not worrying about passports. Obviously, they're spies and they have ways to do it, but it's always just magically they're there. I do like that we're in an era now where period pieces like this can just casually show the World Trade Center in establishing shots again without it feeling icky or exploitative. It's literally just there because that's the period of time we're in, and we're establishing we're in Manhattan.
Maybe this is a good time to talk about how the series looks in terms of, does it feel authentic to you as a late 70s, early 80s kind of a thing? Because they shot a little bit of this in New York, they shot a little bit of this overseas, and they shot a little bit of this over on sets.
They shot a lot of this overseas. It was primarily filmed in Budapest. So while, yeah, they did a little bit around, I never get the New York feel. You know, again, I've talked about it on so many podcasts, how I love New York. Even that stupid Mazes and Monsters movie, I loved seeing early 80s New York City and having that reality feel. Here, when they're outdoors, it feels more like they're in Dark City than they're in New York City, you know? It's always nighttime almost. There's always dead-end streets. It feels a little backlotty or green screeny, but it never feels like New York to me. Even though at one point you're gonna have just some random voice extra scream, "Hey, I'm walking here."
I caught that.
You guys heard it, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's really loud in the mix.
Way to go, Ratso.
But it's not a New York feeling movie, and I feel it's not even all that 70s feeling. I know it kind of is a little bit brownish in hue, and we're gonna have characters with afros and things, but it just doesn't feel anything more than like a 70s night at a local bar.
I mean, I'll give it a little more credit than that. I do feel like they put effort into making sure it feels period appropriate, and I do get the feel of dingy, gross New York streets and bad neighborhoods, and every car on screen seems to be of the time. You know, I'm not seeing anything that looks like it might have accidentally been a 1983 model or anything. It's all these big metal boats driving down the street. So I'll give them that. It wasn't as obvious to me as it sounds like it was to you, Arnie, to the point where it was pulling me out. I was going along with the setting just fine.
Well, to me, believability and authenticity are really important. And look, a movie like David Fincher's Zodiac, American Gangster, or even Joker, that take place kind of in this era, they feel like a more lived-in world. And this production had a lot of money behind it. There was $20 million per episode to make this. At $60 million, that's more than a couple of the John Wick movie budgets. They could have done a lot to really make this feel like a lived-in New York City.
You know what else didn't feel real to me, though, is Colin Woodell as Winston. Ian McShane has this accent and this way of speaking that he has had since birth. And whether he's Blackbeard in Pirates of the Caribbean, or he's in John Wick, or he's in American Gods, he has a gravitas to him that just is there. And now I get, we are seeing the creation of the man. This is Winston before he was Winston. But shouldn't he still speak about the same? I mean, come on. Shouldn't you have gotten someone from England to do this, not someone from California?
Or somebody from Scotland.
Thank you. You can't put an ascot on the guy and say you're Ian McShane.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'm not buying this as Winston. I mean, if they're going to tell us it is, I'll go along with it, but it's not such great casting that I don't have to think about it.
And did they want us to think about him as much as they wanted us to think about Mel Gibson? Because as soon as Winston's dragged out of the hotel by these masked men, that's when we're introduced to Cormac O'Connor. Let me just say the name again. Cormac O'Connor, played by Australian Mel Gibson.
Yeah, like I said, Gibson can play anything.
But he can't play a New York guy. The accent he tries to put on, this New York accent, it kind of comes and goes a little bit for me. We know bad accents. We know Kevin Costner's Robin Hood accent was mocked for years.
He did an accent?
Exactly. Thank you. It comes and it goes.
That's kind of how I feel about Mel Gibson here, is I didn't catch an accent. I just heard Mel Gibson's old man gravel voice.
Is there anything Irish about this guy?
No, but I am catching he's trying to put a little Tony Soprano Godfather type of stank on his voice, but not every time. It's very inconsistent.
And yeah, he's getting his men killing themselves for not getting the coin press back, which does lead to a rare moment of humor that works for me in this series, which is they get Winston outside the hotel, and then this guy just splats on the ground who threw himself off of Cormac's balcony. I thought that was actually rather funny.
That feels a little more John Wick. That's the kind of sick sense of humor that a John Wick movie might have, that scene. So that felt very Wick to me.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is funny, but it also brings up questions of, yeah, I get that there's this clandestine hotel and the police know to stay away and there's nothing they can do about it. But when you start throwing bodies out the window onto the street, law enforcement's going to get involved, right? Like, that's outside of whatever you do in your walls. We're not going to bother you. You're putting dead people on the street. I suppose they could make an excuse it was just a suicide or something. But it struck me in that moment where it's like, come on. People are going to notice this.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a criticism of mine that I might bring up a little later in the show. There's a lot of innocent people who get killed in this series. I feel it's unnecessary. And I'm not saying that innocent people in movies don't get killed all the time and we don't feel bad about it or feel great about it. But it doesn't feel consistent.
I didn't catch a whole lot of collateral damage in this series. So yeah, I look forward to you pointing it out.
I will point it out, yeah.
But the one guy who jumps could be a suicide. If all of those men did jump off of the ledge like lemmings, that would be a little harder to explain. But then again, nobody seemed to look when Frankie was doing a Batman out a 6-story window with machine gun fire coming after him. I think the cops just...
That was New Year's Eve. All the shit goes down on New Year's Eve. They don't care.
We're also introduced in the scene, though, Chiron O'Connor, the Nigerian Irishman. It is the late, great Lance Reddick's character of Chiron being played here by a new actor, a much younger actor. And much like Lance Reddick was for Winston, here the character is the right-hand man for Cormac.
And you say young, they even make it a point to say at some point that he's just a teenager at this point. So he's 18, 19, really young to be in this life and as well put together and in charge of so many things as he seems to be.
And Winston is going to be taken up to Cormac, and I think here our plot's gonna get going. We're gonna finally have some momentum. We got our players on the board. Let's go. Wait, who's fucking who? We're suddenly in the middle of a kinky sex scene with this woman riding this handcuffed guy in bed. I'm like, okay, this was not what I was expecting.
No, the two cops were introduced to us in flagrante delicto. We're going to get, you brought it up, Justin, how the police act around the Continental and how they may tend to ignore what goes on inside. We're actually going to meet cops in this series, not for the first time, because John Wick always had that one cop that kind of came around and said, "Is everything all right, John? You working again?" And he's like, "Yeah, everything's fine." But that's the only police officer that I ever remember in this series. We've seen shootouts all over this universe where the cops don't roll up. Now, all of a sudden, for this show, we're going to get a new subplot, new characters here with these two cops, KD and Mayhew.
And not only is it a little bit out of pocket for the John Wick universe to have us follow cops as characters, I feel like nudity is a little bit out of pocket for this series. Like, I know they've been sexual before, but I don't remember any full-on frontal nudity before in this series.
No, not even in the first one where there's a big shootout scene in kind of the hot tub place.
I knew we really hadn't seen it. I mean, John Wick has been so loyal to his dead wife since part 1. He never had any time for sex scenes. But yeah, this did feel like out of a different series, that we've got these two cops, one of whom's married, and it's kind of a messy relationship because he wants more from her than she wants from him, even though he's the married one. I kept thinking this was going to go places. It never went. I kept thinking, like, oh, Mayhew's going to be a corrupt cop, but De Silva's going to be a good cop. No, that doesn't really happen. Or Mayhew is going to be killed and De Silva has to find out how this is all related. No, this doesn't happen. These two characters bounce around the first 2 episodes seemingly aimlessly. It is so frustrating.
Yeah, Mayhew especially.
Yeah, a little sneak peek of my overall thoughts of the series. Too many characters. Way too many characters in this movie, and I know they have some plots that they're going to try to run through here. Well, some of those plots could have been consolidated into some of these other existing characters. I don't think every person in this series needed to have something going on like this.
And this is the trap that you fall into when you say we're going to do a series. We're not going to do a prequel film. We're going to do a show. And even though they took this and they made it into 3 90-minute movies, it feels like we're at 9 episodes. Or maybe 6, if they were 40 to 45 minutes each.
I agree that this feels just like the trappings of television adaptations. Like with the Star Wars Obi-Wan series, I was so excited to see Ewan McGregor back that I really need to see all the Office Space-like scenes of Imperial bureaucracy and dealing with those characters. No, I want to spend more time with Ewan and maybe Hayden. You know, I didn't necessarily need the rest of that. And yeah, when you're taking something and stretching it out, you're involving more characters and you want to give those characters something interesting to do. I agree. It's a damn shame that the showrunners here didn't find those interesting things for these characters to do.
I suppose there's a little bit of foreshadowing that they need this nudity in this scene with these cops, is that you do notice while, you know, not looking directly at her breasts because they're on screen for quite a while. If you let your gaze wander up, you'll notice that she has some burn scarring along her neck and chest.
I did catch that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, well, it's a little early for body art. I wasn't quite sure what we were seeing with that. But yeah, you're right. That does create a good clue that if you're paying close attention, you probably figure out the ending before it's told outright. I didn't put 2 and 2 together on that.
And when they introduce these two cops, we find out that Katie is pursuing Frankie. She has, believed that he did die in Vietnam, but he's reappeared. He's part of this criminal underworld. She's chasing him down. She's looking at his rap sheet. A little later, when she's looking at his rap sheet, there's kind of a pause. There's something that she notices that's revealed to her, but not to us. And that's another clue that I caught about the scars on her arm.
I'm so confused with some of these plot points, but at this point, aren't Mayhew and De Silva, the two cops, following gun runners?
She is.
Are we all confused? I thought she was after Frankie, trying to get to him through the gun runners.
Yes, that is her path, is she's trying to find Frankie.
Okay, so when she sees Frankie's file later, that look of surprise Jason is talking about wasn't, oh, this is the guy who killed my family? she's not discovering that in that file?
No, that's what I'm saying is she is discovering that. That's the look on her face. Oh, this is the fire that's tied to my subplot. That won't get revealed to us till much further down.
So she's after Frankie now and doesn't know that Frankie killed her family and is later going to find out that Frankie killed her family. Okay. This is coming together a little bit. It was really confusing to me during those first episode especially, because they just keep saying they're following people for the product, and I'm like, what are the products? Why are you not saying what you're selling? Are you selling drugs? Are you selling guns? Are you selling gold coins from the underworld? What is the product? And who are these people? And in between police scenes, we're given another set of character introductions to the point that I'm never sure in this first episode who Mayhew and De Silva are following, who goes into the Continental, and why Mayhew then tells De Silva to back off. I figure it out in retrospect, is that De Silva wants to go after a suspect into the Continental, and Mayhew, as her boss, is like, we don't go into the Continental, but I can't say that outright. I can't tell you, my underling, that this is a place where we allow illegalities to happen, and so I'm just going to be vague and tell you to not follow your lead, and she's of course not going to listen to that, but I'm never sure who they're surveilling to the point of tying it together with the next subplot we're going to talk about.
Are you referring to the Lou and Miles subplot where we're introduced to those characters?
And my favorite, Lemmy. Don't leave Lemmy out of this, yes.
Yeah, we can't leave Lemmy out.
Because, in the middle of the cop scene, we just cut, and now we see 3 people on their knees, and they're being called stupid Americans by some foreign guy with long hair who's about to execute them.
Yeah, he looks like a young Sting a little bit, but like with his skin stretched. Kind of Joker-like.
Vaguely European, I'll say.
More European than our Winston, I'll give him that. But then gunshots come. I'm not even sure who started firing, but shoots the European guy's fingers off and save our 3 heroes.
What I gathered from this is the people on the ground were being a little bit cocky, especially the main guy was being a little bit cocky about the position they were in. So that's kind of telling me, okay, let's pay attention to these people. And what I think happened is they were selling them some bunk guns that they knew would backfire. So as soon as that guy pulled the trigger, he knew that weapon would blow up in his hand, and that would be their opportunity to get them.
Okay, that's great. Okay, that makes sense, is that the European guy pulled the trigger and the gun blew up in his own hand. Because initially, I thought these 3 people on the ground had a 4th friend who was a sniper somewhere, and then that never comes out. And so I'm like, how did these 3 people escape? And they say the European guy, you live only to tell your boss don't fuck with us. I'm like, who are these people who look like they just came out of Soul Train with their 70s hair and affectations, who are now trying to sell guns? And again, this is in the middle of the cop scenes. We've forgotten about Winston and Frankie completely at this point.
Yeah, we find out that KD is actually surveilling this whole gun thing that went down. So when the creepy Sting-looking guy escapes, after screaming to them about spiked ammo, that's why the guns blew up. Spiked ammo. I don't know how that works. I know that's how they beat Negan in Walking Dead. I don't know what spiked ammo does. But this is the scene. Lou, Miles, Lemmy, they're still in the warehouse, and she follows the Sting-looking guy to the Continental.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, we get our introduction, and I suppose it's not yet clear that these 3 people are people that we're going to follow. But before we do find out that those are people that we need to pay attention to, we cut back to Winston's story now, because in case we didn't say it, basically Cormac has told him, go find your brother. You have like 24 hours to bring your brother to me. And so Winston is now going off to look for his brother, and he ends up in a junkyard under a bridge at some guy Charlie's place, I guess.
I think it's a trailer park, isn't it? I mean, we're going to see it in the daylight later. There's a trailer there anyway, and there's a bunch of people standing around a fire, so I'm not quite sure, but Charlie is a character we've seen before. Uncle Charlie was played by David Patrick Kelly in the first couple John Wick films, you know, David Patrick Kelly from Twin Peaks and Warriors come out and play.
And Commando. Don't forget Commando.
And here he's being played by Peter Green, who brought out the Gimp in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He had a small part in Usual Suspects.
Well, he was Redfoot.
Yes.
That's all I remember Peter Green. I'll remember from that movie, and I'll remember him from Judgment Night, too, Arnie, if you remember that.
Oh, I remember Judgment Night. There's one I'd love to talk about someday. But he will have on his gravestone, Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.
Well, Peter Green looks dead here. He's not looking too well, and I know he's had some substance problems, but he's getting up there in age, and it's funny that they have him at this age because he's the same age as David Patrick Kelly's Uncle Charlie character. It's strange.
Well, David Patrick Kelly is 20 years older than Peter Green. So 70s, I guess John Wick takes place in the aughts. So, or I don't know, with their flip phones, maybe it's the 90s, maybe it's the Matrix. I don't know where John Wick takes place, but
I feel like I'm picking at a lot of nits here, but this is the show that they're giving me. I came here for a John Wick spin-off series. I get these cops. We're at Lou and Miles. We've only had 2 scenes with Winston up at this point.
I think a lot of things introduced in this Charlie scene are going to matter, and they don't. Like, Charlie himself, I think, is going to matter, and it really doesn't. We are going to have one of Charlie's friends talk about how he is a chopper pilot for rich guys on the Upper East Side, which is better than flying in Da Nang, and he's going to come into play during the climax of episode 1. But then Winston's going to be like, Charlie, aren't you going to give me a car? Aren't you going to give me a car? And he's like, all right, I'm going to give you Maria. And I think this is going to be the car for, like, the entire series. Like, if you made a John Wick figure line, you would have a Maria car with it the same way you have John Wick's Charger and all of that. And this car is going to be used for, like, half an episode and then discarded. But it's got such an introduction with LaGrange playing by ZZ Top and Charlie saying, put the cover on her every time you park her. Here's a gun. It's not for you. It's to protect the car.
This car is the ultimate tease and unsaid storyline here because, Arnie, remember John Wick's original car was a 69 Mustang. It was this car. It was Maria. So I don't know what they're trying to say here. Is this the car that John Wick eventually restored and was driving around 30 years later? If so, is it really just a visual Easter egg to be like, hey, remember the movie? It was good. You like that car? Here it is.
Oh, wow. I didn't even catch it was the same car.
I had to look it up to verify, and yes, it is the exact same make, model, and name of the vehicle.
So it's a meaningless Easter egg.
Yes.
It's something to remind us of John Wick. You crank up the ZZ Top because Bad to the Bone wasn't out yet, you know. At this point, I also feel like this is an episode break. When he takes off to LaGrange, if they were going to cut this down, this is where the first episode would end. And I kind of started to look for those throughout this series because, like I said, it should not have been these kind of 3 90 minutes. But if you would stretch it out to 10, I'm not sure I could have hung in there for the whole thing.
Yeah, maybe that's why they did 3. I did notice in episode 2 there were some fade to blacks that felt like when you watch a TV series on DVD and this is where the commercial break was when it first aired. I didn't catch it on episode 1, but I definitely caught some on episode 2 where I'm like, this feels like a break. But yeah, I thought this car was going to really, I guess it does. It is a huge introduction because it's a major part of the John Wick universe, which makes this all the more confusing.
Mm-hmm. But it's literally a vehicle used for Winston because he got some information. So he's pointed in the direction of a dojo where they know that Frankie has some friends and an old buddy from the war that he had been hanging out with. So we head to the dojo and we find out that it's our gun runners. It's the same people that we had just met.
Which is good. I want these characters to interact. I want them to interact more. I really wish the cops also interacted at some point with our main characters during this first episode. It's not going to happen. But at least this introduces Winston to Miles and his sister Lou at the dojo. And Frankie was with Miles in Nam. Again, the backstory on Frankie's a little iffy because what we're going to hear is he was selling weapons with Miles, but then he became unreliable because he was using dope. But he also supposedly got off the dope when he met his wife in Vietnam.
There is a lot of Vietnam backstory that these characters talk about, and it's an emotional detour that isn't exactly necessary. These are not the show's core characters. I mean, Frankie's not going to last long enough for us to really get to know him, but it kind of distracts a little bit from the central momentum here, which is something was stolen. Where's Frankie? We haven't seen this guy for 35 minutes. They just yanked Winston back over from London. They said, go find your brother. And he tells Mel Gibson, I don't care about my brother. I'm not interested in this. And yet Mel thinks he's going to be a reliable guy to go find Frankie.
And he apparently does. I'm not sure why. I suppose Cormac threatened his life or whatever, but it's, go on the run. We can avoid all of this.
How do you guys feel about the karate dojo subplot? When we get introduced to the Burton dojo, where Lou and Miles and Lemmy hang out, we learn that there are gangsters that are trying to claim the dojo, and this becomes a subplot that kind of runs through, but it has no impact on the overall Winston Continental story.
Yeah, it feels like more needless character development, because I don't need as much backstory for every character as they're giving us. I feel like we can get an idea of who Lou and Frank and all these guys are with just a few lines and some scenes to show us what they can do. I don't need every one of them to have a demon to exercise or a problem that they need to work through. We know Lou doesn't want to use guns. She's holding on to the dojo because it was her father's, and it's too much. It's too much for a 10-episode series. It's too much for 4 hours of content.
I agree. This is needless because when you tell a multi-layered story and you have a lot of subplots, great writing is when all of those disparate plots come together in an unexpected way and tie up together at the end. This is like if you're playing a video game and there's a complete side quest that has nothing to do with the main plot, but you get a trophy if you go and do this extra thing, you can go and do it. But it doesn't involve Winston in any way. It barely involves the world of John Wick in any way, except we're going to find out her father was an assassin. And so I guess that relates to the Continental. I guess he might have partied there some New Year's Eves before he died. But it's so dramatically unfulfilling and so melodramatic. And this actress playing Lou just gets all these scenes of looking pensive and upset and staring at pictures of her father and staring at guns. It's so overwrought. I will use this word. I hate this subplot.
The dojo subplot.
Yes.
I mean, I get that they need a base of operations and they need a nice way to give Winston access to people and weapons and all that stuff. Fine, have the dojo, have these characters. We just don't need the whole subplot of Lou coming to terms with the fact that her father wasn't necessarily a great guy. It's needless, and it adds more characters than needed when we start getting into the Chinese street gang.
There is a lot going on in this first episode, and my criticism is that we're not focused enough on Winston. You mentioned the demons to exercise, Justin. Winston is supposed to be, we're told, I don't feel it, but we're supposed to be sad, like he feels terrible about this fire that he started all those years ago, and he's haunted by it. I don't really get that from the character. I didn't get it in his introduction. I didn't get it from the scene where he's kidnapped and brought back to Mel. I didn't get it when he's facing Mel. But we're told starting this fire and killing these innocent people has been hanging over him all these years. But I don't see that in this guy, especially not in this first episode.
No, I don't see it at all in any of them. He'll say the words, but this does not feel like a character with a dark past. He feels, after this episode, like a character on a mission of vengeance, but it's not like he's ever trying to atone.
I agree. That's an excellent point. Yeah, no atonement.
But we're going to find out from Miles to go to a movie theater, and there's a repeated motif in this series of like children's entertainment during violence, be it a commercial for Mounds and Almond Joy candy bars, or here Woody Woodpecker is playing while Yen comes out of nowhere and starts attacking Winston.
Maybe that is the humor of the showrunner. I mean, he used to write the comedies.
And hey, I'll I'll say these little touches I'm enjoying. I am enjoying some of the nostalgia that they have playing on TV. There's a Slinky commercial at some point, I believe, and a old school Alka-Seltzer commercial, and like Arnie said, Woody Woodpecker. These are all fun little things for kids of the 70s like us. So yeah, that's great, and it helps build the world a little bit, but I'm more concerned with the fluff and barrage of characters that are being thrown at me at this time to truly enjoy those little things.
I know. I mean, we haven't seen Frankie and Yen since the very beginning of this episode, and here they are coming back into it and having this dramatic reunion of brothers and...
Oh, you guys, we are forgetting, before we even get to the reunion, we have to meet the Department of the Adjudicator.
Oh, I didn't forget. It's just, it has so little to do. We have another character, the Adjudicator, played by Katie McGrath. We never get to see her face, but she was Bryce Dallas Howard's assistant in Jurassic World, if you remember that role. It was actually a pretty big role.
She's the one who got picked up by the bird?
Yeah.
You know, dinosaur? Oh, great death. Great death in a PG-13 movie.
So she's here and giving Cormac 3 days to get the coins back.
Yeah, her and her henchman. It looks like a jacked up flea with eyeliner.
Yeah, I got a real flea vibe off of him too. Or remember the old Australian Energizer guy? The Oi!
Yes, thank you. I love that.
So we were introducing an adjudicator is first they're torturing the guy that Frankie was working with before they go to meet Mel. And then she's threatening Mel.
And then Mel is like, get me the weirdos. Wait, they're all weirdos. Get me those twins, Hansel, Gretel, whatever they're called. And that's where we get to see, it looks like, if you remember the Saturday Night Live skit with Mike Myers, Sprockets, and Would You Like to Touch My Monkey? I mean, this guy with the page boy haircut, who I'm guessing is Hansel, and his scarred up sister Gretel, and they're the ones with the Slinky ad playing in the background as they get hired to go after Winston and Frankie, and they're going to be like the stalkers for the entire series. They're always going to be the head mercs on Winston's tail.
And I like the fact that the John Wick series will show a variety of assassins. You get, I believe it was a violin player in part 2 and a guy who looked like a sumo guy. Just, you know, interesting. You would not think that they were trained killers. When they put these two on the screen, smoking aces. That was the first thing that came to me. It doesn't feel like John Wick, but okay, if we're going to expand the universe a little bit, if there are going to be quirky assassins in the hotel, fine. But there's no excuse for the dude's haircut.
And I appreciate it. It's something visual to set them apart from everybody else. I can't tell you how many balding guys with beards are running around this hotel throughout this show. I mean, it's almost like the NPCs in a video game that they forgot to change any assets on. Because there was the first 3 guys we see in the Continental, the one that got tossed over the thing, they all look like the same guy. Middle-aged, bald guy with a beard.
There is a scene here that comes just before we meet Hansel and Gretel that I wanted to point out. It is my favorite scene in this episode. It's when KD goes into the Continental. She's a cop. They don't know it at first, but when she goes up to the bar and she pulls out cash, and then she gets that look from the bartender because they've never seen that kind of thing before, and they don't know what to do. She looks over at another guy who's sitting there who looks like, I don't know, like a Hollywood movie producer, and he's just like, it's okay. Allow her to do this.
But then that movie producer nods at somebody else, who then walks past and nods at somebody else, and it's reminding me from that scene in Johnny Dangerously where finally the mob boss goes, no more nodding!
But I love that we're seeing the Continental through the eyes of KD in this scene. They're the staff. They're not shy about hiding their guns.
It's just funny to me that we became so used to seeing John Wick giving his gold coins for a room and gold coins for a drink, that should someone pull out cash, that's a big red flag that this person doesn't belong here. And then, yeah, when De Silva, KD, whatever you want to call her, is asking for a room, the person at the front desk is going to be like, oh, we're all full up. We don't serve your kind here. So we got all these people looking for Winston. Where's Winston? Where's Frankie? Back at Charlie's.
Well, they hired the actors for the day. We need to get another scene out of them.
And some guy who's named Cal betrays them and calls Cormac's men, and that's going to lead to a car chase that, yeah, it's going to take Maria out real fast.
Yeah, a pretty decent car chase for a miniseries. I mean, I wouldn't put it up there with the greats in movies all time, but it's pretty decent.
It's not bad. It's not great. When the car flips, I think it's kind of cool looking because they do bullet time, slow-mo, showing Yen and Frankie and Winston all screaming in the car as it's going over, but none of the action in the series ever really wows me. Some of it's decent, this is fine, but I'm never blown away.
And this is how we know we're not in the hands of the John Wick creative team. They may have been there, like you said, in a producing role or an EP role, and they may have had some overall insight, but they weren't there day to day.
Yeah, this doesn't hold a candle to the stuff we've seen in John Wick with him using the car as a weapon and getting away and sliding and slamming into things and all that. This is a pretty straightforward chase through the streets.
I'm trying to figure out, is there symbolism or is it obvious symbolism that the car flips over right in front of a giant Jesus Saves sign? But none of these people seem like they find God by the end of the movie. But they're going to run into a building and have a fight in a staircase. And I think this is good TV action. It's dark. It's kind of hard to see who's shooting at who. Again, I'm never wowed, but I'm entertained.
Yeah, that's fair. That's where I'm at, too. It's got enough soundtrack, exhilarating music, and flashing going on the screen that I'm not sitting here yawning or zoning out.
You know, they really use the music to try and keep you in the show. And a lot of times it feels a little bit like a crutch, but crank up the next song and your ears will perk up because you recognize it, so now you're tuning back in.
You know who I think is doing really good martial arts, though, is the actress who's playing Yen. And she doesn't speak much English during this series. I don't know how fluent the actress is with English or if they just chose someone because of their martial arts skill to play this role and it didn't matter if they spoke good English. But it seems like she's getting the good fights, and when we go to Winston, he's just like throwing haymakers and doing old Captain Kirk fight moves, whereas she's getting in there and doing martial arts and sliding and doing the more kind of, not really gun fu, she doesn't use a gun all that much, but the more kind of kung fu type stuff we're used to with John Wick.
Yeah, I feel like what we're learning here is in order to replace Keanu in a series like this, we need several people to pick up the individual skills that he brings to the role, you know? And I guess in the lore of this universe, I guess I'm kind of glad that Winston wasn't the previous generation's John Wick. That would be a little too hokey and on the nose if he was this incredible fighter just like John was before John was, you know? So I'm okay with the ensemble picking up some of that skill set and distributing it.
I agree. And I agree with Arnie that I think that Yen's fight scenes are pretty terrific. And she is a martial artist. So she's got the training to be able to pull this off, and it's believable.
The one thing she did, the thing that felt most John Wickish of the entire series for me, happens here where she's fighting some guy in an apartment and grabs an iron and uses the cord as a weapon and then sticks the guy's hand in a garbage disposal.
That is sick.
Yeah, and he starts screaming and then she just uses the iron as a bludgeon to kill him. And I'm like, this is the type of stuff we've seen John Wick kill people with pencils and with books. And we've equated him with all that old Jackie Chan type stuff with the using of the coats and things. This is what I come to a John Wick movie for, and Yen is giving me that.
For about a minute and a half, and then we have to keep on going.
Yeah, because sadly, this isn't Yen's movie. I think it should be. But yeah, they run to the rooftop. That chopper pilot we saw for like 30 seconds earlier is waiting with a chopper to get them away. And a question is asked, and I don't think it's ever answered unless you guys can help me. The pilot's going to say, "Where's Charlie?" And they're like, "We thought Charlie was with you." And we never see Charlie again.
Charlie's on the cutting room floor.
Charlie had a callback that he had to get to, and he didn't get that part either, but he's no longer in this series. His trailer's still in the series.
Yeah, and Charlie comes back in the movies. I really thought Charlie was going to make an appearance somewhere. I thought he'd pop up at the end and be like, I'm back! You wondered where I was!
Part of the team on the inside. Yeah.
Instead, Frankie is shot on the roof by Gretel while everybody else takes off in the helicopter. And we wonder what's going to happen to the coin press because the box is delivered to Mel. And when he opens it, nada.
Nah, I love what's in there. It's a monkey giving you the finger. I thought that was hysterical.
I didn't feel like the monkey was set up for us, but whatever. Yeah.
There's a scene where they're playing with it on Charlie's desk at one point, and it also makes an appearance in the animated intro, too. So it's like, that right there told me, oh, need to start paying attention to the intro animation for giveaways to what's going to be happening in the series.
And I didn't find it all that believable, though, that Frankie would sacrifice himself. I know he loves his wife, and that would be the reason he does it, but he spent this whole episode, and it seems his whole life, running from responsibility, that he chooses this moment to make the noble sacrifice. I thought this was going to be the Shane Brothers series, and so when Frankie takes the bullet to the head, I'm like, okay, this series is just defying my every expectation.
Yeah, they want it to be a shock moment. I don't feel totally shocked. I just kind of shrug a little bit.
Yeah, it would have been a sacrifice better left for the end if we had more time with these characters, and it would have been felt heavier, but I feel like we get a substitute in that area later on that we'll get to. And it also feels like they're trying to shoehorn some of that John Wick emotion in there because they killed his dog. That's his entire motivation. Here we get a dead brother.
Yeah, they're going to do some shoehorning because the very next move Winston makes is to show up at the dojo and say, I want guns. Lots of guns.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to our second episode, Loyalty to the Master, which is going to be a conversation piece later in this episode, but we start all three of these episodes off in the 50s. This time, if you paid attention like Justin did to the burns on De Silva in the last one, maybe this opening has a lot of meaning to you when you see young Frankie and young Winston throwing a Molotov cocktail into somebody's apartment and then being horrified when they find out, oh shit, there's people in there.
Is this a mystery that they couldn't just reveal to us at the very beginning? Is it important that they have to lay it out throughout the whole series, little tiny pieces of this crime that they committed back in 1955?
This makes it feel like decisions were made in editing, right? Like, this almost feels like the reverse of what this is. It almost feels like they had a 2-hour movie, and then they decided to turn it into a series. So they stretched it with this type of thing, where in a movie, this would have been just the prologue. We would have got that and we would have moved on. But since this is serialized, we get a little bit at the beginning of each episode.
Yeah, I don't know that this mystery is really all that involving is the thing. I get why they're stretching it out is because it theoretically would hook us to say what's going on and why is all this happening. Again, if Winston felt more haunted by his past, then we might be able to have the reveal of what's been haunting him. But the way it's told is just soap opera-ish. You know, it's almost like at the end, oh my god, DeStefano was behind it all?
DeStefano. I know what show you've been watching. I don't know. This is backstory that we're getting that feels like filler.
But we're not just going to have that one flashback here. We're going to start with a second flashback with Yen in Vietnam with her husband, where she's like, I'm sorry I couldn't give you a child. And the husband's like, that's fine. Strap on this bomb and go blow yourself up. So she's going to do this. And again, is this supposed to be comedy? Because she goes out among the people. She doesn't seem to want to blow herself up, but she's there and she pushes the button and doesn't blow up. And so she pushes the button a few more times and doesn't blow up. And that's when she has her meet cute. She like looks across the bar she was supposed to blow up, and there's Frankie.
The opium addict with the baby eyes giving her the look.
I mean, she wanted to live anyway. It's just, again, melodramatic that at the moment she was going to blow herself up, she sees him. I mean, how do you start that conversation? Is, hello, I have a bomb on me. Can I buy you a drink?
Okay, so we get the Bronx flashback, then we get a second flashback, because we're going to see about Frankie's time in Vietnam. First, we're going to get to see Yen, what she's doing down there.
Yeah, she's being seen to by Lou, given an IV drip. That's going to introduce us to our other subplot. This is so random. Is people show up to deliver a cigarette machine, and Lou doesn't want the cigarette machine delivered, and that's going to introduce us to the orphan master, who says every building on this block must have one of my cigarette machines or we're going to destroy your business.
Yeah, do you guys know what the cigarette machine means?
Please elucidate. I have no idea outside of the fact that it's stretching the time by adding this unnecessary Chinese gang into the scenario.
When the gangster puts the cigarette machine in your store, it basically gives him a foothold into your business. So there's going to be cuts coming from the cigarette machine. Cigarette machine could be used for some sort of clean money laundering scheme. It is a way to say that you've bent the knee to this gangster. And Lou does not want to bend the knee to Orphan Master. What a name.
Okay. I literally thought it was as simple as the orphan master wanted to profit off cigarette sales.
75 cents at a time. This is the 70s, you know, so... To be honest with you, I just think it's something that the filmmakers thought was cool. I feel like they had a brainstorming session. They're like, what else is essentially 70s? Remember cigarette machines? Cool. Let's pop one of those in there.
It's supposed to be symbolic, and so is Lou when she smashes, into the goons. She doesn't like this orphan master guy. She's saying, I don't want to fold my dojo in with your criminal operation. But really, what show am I watching? This is called the Continental. It's not Karate Dojo show.
Well, they also point out quite blatantly that she doesn't have any customers. What is she holding on to other than the memory of her father? It's not like it's a bustling dojo that is bringing in money.
No, it's only the memory of her father, which is a tiny, tiny piece of character development that you would give somebody in a different show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. This entire subplot, the less we talk about it, the happier I'm going to be, because it's really just not great. But yeah, we're going to then get Winston on a mission. He wants to kill Cormac. He needs Lou, Miles, and Lenny to help, but they don't know where the coin press is. And so Miles is like, right away, very ambitious. Let's take over the entire Continental.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's where we need to end up, right? But holy cow, were we not building to that at all.
And we still have another 3 hours to go.
So I guess it is a goal that they could be lifting up right now. But if somebody hopped into the series, watched the first episode, and never came back to it, I don't know that anybody would guess that that would be what Winston is planning to do.
No, it's very... like, they send one of ours to the hospital, we're going to send a nuke to them. It's not just send one to the morgue, we're going to nuke their entire building as the answer here. So, this is the we gotta get a team together part of the movie, right? Winston needs an army, and the first person they're going to go to is a sniper named Gene, and he's an aging sniper who we like him because he kills pedophiles for fun, but he also is getting a little too old for the sniper game. He needs to put on the bifocals if he's going to sharpshoot.
Yeah. Is Gene one too many?
Literally, he might be the one too many.
Well, we're also going to have a guy show up later named Ronnie. He's in the third act, and I couldn't recall where he was in the earlier parts. But yeah, Gene shows up. We're told that his character quirk is that he can't shoot straight so much anymore. We're not supposed to dislike him because he shoots pedophiles. By the way, it's okay for him to just kill regular people. This is an assassin universe. We never hated the fact that John Wick does what he does, or that anybody else does. We don't look down on them like, oh, I can't get on board with that. He's an assassin. I'm not going to hate on Halle Berry in part 3 because that's what she does for a living. This is the world they built.
Yeah, but they kind of fuck with you because initially you see through his crosshairs that he's shooting at a playground and you're like, God, is he going to kill a kid? And then the kid runs over to a man and you're like, oh, is he going to kill the kid's father? Then you're like, wait, this guy was kind of luring the kid over with a half-eaten baked pretzel. Oh, he killed the guy. Oh, he's a pedophile. Okay, let's go with that. That's such a journey from I think he's going to kill kids to he's protecting kids.
You're on the team, Gene.
And scarring them for life, too. I mean, you'll never forget the day that you were about to get a pretzel from a guy whose head exploded right in front of you.
But Gene misses the first shot, and it's funny to me that the pedophile's like, did something just hit this tree? I'm gonna stand here still and try to figure out. Admittedly, if I heard a thud too, my first thought wouldn't be somebody's taking shots at me from a roof, but...
I agree with you guys. Gene might be one guy too many, but I will say I enjoy him as a character.
I do too. I like the energy he brings because he's a little more lighthearted and he's going to have the romance storyline that we need in this. Nobody else has a romance. If anything, we have the anti-romance going on between the cops who each episode like each other less. So here we have Gene who's going to find love before it's over.
And I guess they need Gene because he knows a little bit about the ins and outs of the Continental. That's important. He has a beef with Cormac. He feels Cormac's got to die. I think this is the kind of team that he should be putting together. People that have beef with Mel Gibson. And do Miles and Lou? Really? Other than the fact that Frankie got killed? I don't know. Lemmy, I don't know.
What he offers Miles and Lou and Lemmy is you guys haven't been able to sell your guns because Cormac has a corner on the market. I'm going to take over Cormac's business and you guys get to be the gun runners of New York. So that's their motivation, is they can become kingpins of crime. But if they're coming after the Continental, you need an army. And one of the best expansions of the John Wick universe in my mind has always been Lawrence Fishburne's The Bowery King. He came in part 2 and added this whole third element that wasn't beholden to the high table necessarily. He was going to do his own thing with his team of homeless assassins. Well, in the 70s, it wasn't a Bowery King. It was a Bowery Queen named Maisie. And Winston's gonna go and we're gonna think it's this woman who looks like the pigeon lady from Home Alone 2. But no, that's a ruse. It's this well-dressed woman in the back.
I was shocked that there wasn't a young Lawrence Fishburne running around and her saying, there goes my son.
The Bowery Prince.
Yeah, the way that this is going, that's kind of what I expected. But, he's off shooting Apocalypse Now around this time. So that's where the king is.
Yeah, but I do like this expansion of the lore a little bit. The Bowery is interesting. It plays a little bit better in the movies because most of that movie is slick, high-tech, cutting-edge, neon. And then we cut to the Bowery in the bowels of a city, and there's a nice contrast there. This entire series is set in 70s New York where everything is gritty and grimy. So there's almost no distinction between the Bowery and the rest of the set.
Yeah, good point.
But she doesn't want Winston's money. He has a lot of that. She wants love, and you have to tell me your story.
What?
Yeah, kind of a needless complication here. Working with the Bowery was never easy for John Wick. It shouldn't be easy for Winston, but this, again, feels like a video game where you're being given frustratingly vague clues on how your character needs to proceed.
Yeah, the dialogue tree that you have to play through 3 times to get the right answer. Oh, love! It was love! Damn it, okay. I'll do it next time.
And in a tighter story, in a single film, we would have gotten this character's introduction a little bit into the second act, and then we would have been with her in the third act when the Bowery kind of comes back. There's not much after this introduction here, because afterwards we immediately go back to Charlie's junkyard, where everybody's looking for the coin press. We run into the twins some more, and we get Harry Nilsson's Without You.
Well, the Without You is kind of cool because the mercs are looking for Yen. She's run away from the dojo and went back to the theater, and we get another good Yen action scene where she's killing those 2 mercs, throwing random debris at them and things. Ironically, to Without You. It's not the music you'd expect. After Deadpool, this is kind of done, right? I mean, Deadpool used the ironic pop music choice to the T, and so now it's just kind of a cliche, but it still works. I'm still enjoying seeing Yen in this brief action scene.
She gets the best action here. Because she is a martial artist, she does throw the beatings much better than anybody else in this show.
Yeah, we get a couple contraptions we see here, and I'm not sure if that was Frankie's handiwork or her handiwork, but they seem to work to kill the two people that were after him there.
But who's going to get a lot more time in this episode is Sharon, who's going to get his own subplot now. We're going to get a scene of him on the roof talking with this cellist named Thomas. Apparently these two friends, lovers, romantic interest that is unrequited. We're not going to know exactly how deep it goes, but Thomas is going to Ireland to study music and asks Sharon, will you come with me?
Cellist kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, he's only here to present in front of Sharon the two possible paths that are laid before him. He can either believe that he has free will and he can leave this life whenever he wants, which he doesn't, or he can stay and do his duty. And he finds out what happens with the former choice.
Yeah, he says Mel's been grooming him, and I suppose grooming him for the position that he will take in the movies, but he's also holding his father over him too.
Yeah, he says that his father is so proud of the work he's done, and that Cormac says he's going to bring his father over soon when Sharon proves himself, and he thinks that has to be pretty soon. Thomas is like, he may never bring your father. You could open up the world. But we get a little of Sharon's backstory. He's like, where I'm from, violence is rampant. Here, at least the chaos is controlled. I'm safer in the Continental than I ever was in my home country.
Yeah, and Cormac is obviously controlling here, and he keeps driving home the idea of loyalty. It's not loyalty to a lifestyle. It's not loyalty to the Continental or a creed. It's loyalty to Cormac. And I think that's what Sharon eventually comes to the understanding of.
And so Winston and Lou are going to hijack a bus to get Sharon alone and try to convince him. They steal his letter because it's a little unbelievable that for fun, Sharon just goes to a local bar, listens to music, he leaves the Continental to hang out at a drink joint. But it gets him away so he can be gotten alone by Winston, who's going to try to appeal to his better nature and say, you may have to make sacrifices, but a father figure is responsible for teaching you about loyalty and family and business. Cormac only cares about himself. It's you or him.
Yeah, and as a viewer, we're left to think that Sharon has spurned this meeting, and he's not going to be on the same page with Winston.
I read it differently. I kind of thought he would be in on it, so that when he then goes to Cormac and says, oh, Winston is coming after you, that I took that as a betrayal, but I also took it as an obvious betrayal, that like what he was doing was a betrayal according to plan.
Agreed, Arnie. I didn't have any doubt that Sharon was in on Winston's plan, just partially because we know where the movies end up. It was one of those things where it felt like they wanted to hide it from us, but if you've seen more than one movie, you know that he's going in there and he's going to con Mel now.
Yeah, and I guess that's my point, is that we all know that he's eventually going to be on the side of Winston, but the show, I think, is writing it so we're supposed to believe that he's not going along with this. And it's not supposed to be obvious at all.
They needed to do a better job to be more convincing.
It's supposed to be a twist.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the cellist is brought in front of Cormac. I feel like Cormac called the cellist from the very beginning to kill him. But yet, it's also the way Mel acts. It's like he has a moment of, oh, I'm going to kill you, instead of it being from the very beginning, I'm going to kill you. Yet, why would he call for the cellist in the first place? It's also a little confusing because he tells the cellist, I'm the one who recommended you for this position at the academy.
It was a loyalty test, right? That he failed.
To make sure the cellist stays at the Continental so he could continue to entertain on the rooftop.
Well, no, more deeper than that. The things that you guys were speculating about the relationship between Sharon and the cellist is the cellist is trying to steal Sharon. So disloyal in two ways to his boss.
In this scene, regardless of how I feel about Mel Gibson, we know that he's a bigot and a terrible person in real life. This is where some good Mel comes out. Some good rage Mel. You know, that's something that I kind of like to watch still. He gets angry here with the cellist in this scene, and then he just kind of cuts loose.
It is brutal the way he goes after the cellist with that golf club, saying some one-liners, and the blood is splattering up on him. It's rather amusing in its over-the-top way.
You mentioned the one-liners, and I wrote them down, man. He's teed off as he swings a golf club. He's taking the mulligan. I mean, this is corny. This isn't grade A dialogue, but it just had me chuckling a little bit. It would have hit harder if I knew or cared about the cellist. We just met the guy 5 minutes ago.
I have the question of when Chiron comes back and sees the cellist is dead, is that when he's going to turn against Cormac? Is this the moment? But no, he's going to say, Winston is coming for you. And Cormac is going to be like, oh, we need a new musician here, one whose family, we can't trust the cellist, so let's bring your father, the violinist, over. So it looks like Chiron's going to get what he always wanted.
And we take The Long Way Home by Roger Hodgson as we wrap up episode 2.
Yeah, and we didn't mention the reason the episode was called Loyalty to the Master is when the cellist plays for Cormac here at the end, he's playing Don Giovanni and says what he's playing is a piece about loyalty to the master. We're going to find out that wasn't really the case. If you, I guess, know your opera, you're ahead of the game on this one.
I'd like to meet that person whose interests intersect with opera and the John Wick universe.
There's definitely some opera assassins in this universe.
But that brings us to our third and final episode, Theater of Pain. Once again, starting in black and white, 1955. Frankie and Winston's mom doing what all good moms do when they go to work, locking their kids in a car trunk.
Oh, who hasn't been there?
A lot of room in that trunk. Obviously, those are old cars. I miss those old days when those cars had big trunks. I've ridden in the trunk of a car before. It's fun sometimes.
But we cut to modern day, and it's a bit head-scratching to me. I'm like, wait, is Winston at that same car on Charlie's junk lot? Is it the exact same car? Did Charlie keep that car the whole time, or is it just the same make and model?
I think we're to believe that it is the same car that they would slept in as kids, because that's where Frankie would hide his most precious.
Okay.
This is a little so on the nose. A lot of this is.
This is the climax episode. Everything should be about the assault on the Continental. Winston convinces Maisie because he buys her a bank and tells his story. What's his story? His mom used to clean floors of a bank, and it was the bank that foreclosed on their home and made them live in a car, and she got on her knees in front of the banker, and the banker treated her with such disdain, and so bankers are just out to harm the common man and intimidate the common man. And so here, Maisie, I buy you an abandoned bank.
That is excellent. That I love that for the next show, The Bank from the World of John Wick.
From the vault of John Wick.
There we go.
I suppose I like it. It's just the one sub-story that I feel like does add to the lore, like we said, of John Wick. So fine, the Bowery is growing. It gives them somewhat of a permanent place to call home. So fine, great. It's now part of the lore.
And we're learning more about Winston and who he is. But again, this person doesn't feel like the guy we met at the very beginning. How did he become the handsome con man rogue guy from the very beginning in the meeting with Patrick Bergen? This isn't him. This is a completely different guy.
Yeah, it does not feel like the same character at all to me.
And it doesn't feel like the same character that changed through growth in the series either, because all he's doing is referring back to his past. So the past was always with him there at the beginning.
Nor does it feel like he's growing towards the Ian McShane version of the character that we know from the movies.
Certainly not. The ascot is not enough to do it.
And then everybody is hunting for Winston, though. Chiron betrays Winston and says to Cormac, Winston's coming after you. De Silva, we didn't even talk about the cops in episode 2 because they did so little, but they went to a morgue and tried to find who took Frankie's remains, and De Silva beat up a morgue assistant to discover it was the people at the dojo. So De Silva, on her hunt for Winston, goes to the dojo and is tracking him this whole episode.
With Mayhew taking pictures of everybody outside.
And then Winston just goes to a regular hotel, not the Continental, where all the mercs track him down for our first gunfight of the episode.
Yeah, Winston sets up base at just a regular hotel that it feels like there's a reason for it, but really, I don't know, is it supposed to be giving us a false sense of safety or something? Because that world is crashed down just as soon as we figure out where he is.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure. He kind of had a falling out with Lou and Miles where they wanted more buy-in from Maisie, and he's like, I'm going to have her promise a few hours from now. You're either with me or you're not. So I guess he gets the hotel room to be a little bit more of a lone wolf here.
We get a good shootout in this hotel scene, but here's what I kind of want to point out. This Hansel, he kills the bellhop, the desk person, just an innocent person. And these are assassins. Aren't they only paid to kill people? He just kind of raises his gun, he doesn't say anything, and he kills that person. It's going to happen. We're going to see this happen a little bit more. These are people that assassins are taking out, but they're not getting paid for.
I get what you're saying, Jason. What I took this as was no witnesses.
Yeah. I mean, but to me, I'm always thinking of the mess they're leaving. But obviously, even though this series does have cops, they're not concerned about just blatant murder all over town. They're dialed in on whatever mission they're on.
Yeah, it doesn't feel John Wick to me.
I didn't find this gunfight to be all that exciting, but this is where De Silva finally catches up to Winston and slows him down just long enough that she can get shot.
Right, and don't forget that Lou is there too the entire time, but she doesn't use guns.
Yeah, she's anti-gun, as established right away up front with her character.
Yeah, and she's the anti-gun gun runner, you know?
But eventually, I think she will use a gun, so that's her character development.
So now Mel has Winston, and he's going to drag him back to the Continental, which, you know, was part of the plan the whole time to get into the hotel. But Mel is going to go do one of his speeches. Angry Mel.
Yeah, and let's just get this out of the way. While this is going on, Lou goes back to the dojo to face off against the Orphan Master. Because we're about to have the big climax we want to talk about at the Continental, let's get out of the way this subplot we don't care about, where the Orphan Master is going to reveal to Lou, your dad was an assassin and he used guns, and I happen to have your dad's favorite gun right here. Hold this gun while I trash your dojo.
That's a Desert Eagle that he hands her, right?
I'm not a gun guy, but it's a big gun.
That gun wasn't made yet. It's one of the things that I looked up. I had to look this up. The Desert Eagle pistol was first designed in 1979. He did not get the first one off the assembly line because it didn't even hit the market until the early 80s.
For a show that's trying to be period accurate, that's an unnecessary cell phone.
Right.
But there's also this orphan boy who's been kind of friendly to Lou since episode 1. He's kind of the harbinger of the Orphan Master. Before we ever see the Orphan Master, we always see this orphan.
Does the orphan grow up to be somebody in the movies that we should know about?
Not that I know of.
That would be something from this subplot.
They're saving it for a second season that never happens.
The little orphan likes electronics, and he says he sometimes has a sense for things, so he grabbed the C4 detonator and hands it to Lou so she could just blow up the dojo with Orphan Master and all his goons in it. Isn't that handy?
Oh, yeah.
Because when you keep C4, you of course keep detonators in the C4 at all times, right? And a remote with a single button trigger out on the counter where any little boy can grab it.
Why does she blow up her own business? She takes out Orphan Master, but now she doesn't have a dojo.
She didn't before. He destroyed the hell out of it. I mean, he and his people were in there wrecking it.
Oh, they were wrecking it like the karate punks in a Karate Kid movie. I looked at that. They were just doing vandalism like Chosen's gang.
And it was now ruined for her because her father didn't build it. It's no longer the legacy. Its legacy is sullied. She's able to embrace guns and embrace gun running now that she knows her father wasn't actually a dojo builder.
This is fantastic for the Lou series from the World of John Wick.
But now let's get back to the Continental, because Lou will eventually show up at the Continental as a big reveal of hey, remember Lou's in this series in the main plot in some regard?
Right.
But yeah, Mel is monologuing, but he's also just kind of gone nuts. He's like, I don't even care about the box anymore. Goons, throw Winston off this balcony.
Oh, we have to talk about Mel huffing the blue stuff.
What was that?
Was it the stuff that barbers use to clean combs? Is that what it was?
Barbasol? Maybe it's that magic elixir that they shoot themselves with to heal. I don't know. Maybe it's some fancy drug. This series doesn't care to tell us. It's just something that looks different and cool, I guess.
Mel says, prepare the elixir, the fun fumes. I need my medicine.
We are going to find out there are proprietary medicines to the Continental. And Sharon is going to bring out one that can instantly remove your pain. And no doctor has it. It's, trademark and copyright and registered by the Continental. And I guess this is something Cormac uses to get amped up. Is it poppers?
I thought he used racism to get amped up, but that's Mel.
I do love that when Cormac finds out Winston has partnered with the Bowery group, he goes, I'm hobophobic.
Hobophobic. I wrote that down. That's Mel's favorite line.
I'm like, that's one letter away from the truth there, Mel.
He probably hates the homeless too,
Yeah, that line will be used in a deposition against Mel Gibson at some future date, I'm sure.
But I do love the Gene stuff. It just amuses me where he was pretending to be a rat catcher in some woman's apartment because that woman has the perfect view to snipe at the Continental. And so he convinces her to leave and he's in that apartment now. And when the guys are going to throw Winston off the balcony, Gene just takes the two guys out.
Right. Gene is in his nest specifically for two reasons: to flirt with this woman and start a little romance, and to become the Deus Ex Machina who just kills people when you think that all hope is lost.
Yeah, because the woman does come home mid-climax because she forgot her medicines, and he has to tie her up, and while shooting people is like, you water these plants too much. Maybe it's not my place to say, but overwatering a plant is as bad as underwatering a plant, and maybe we could go to the botanical gardens.
Oh, Gene, I can't wait for your spinoff.
That's the one that I would be willing to follow somewhat, but that's not what we're here for.
It would have to be a sitcom, though, like 30 minutes, 6 episodes, none of this 90-minute, 3-episode stuff.
Yeah, they'll shoot it like the little Marvel movies that they used to insert on the DVDs.
The one-shots, yes.
One-shots, thank you.
And Gene only needs one shot. I mean, he takes people out, one shot. And this is where we find out also Chiron was on Winston's side all along. If you didn't figure it out, Mel dives under his desk, hits the red button, but Chiron disconnected the red button and took Cormac's shotgun.
They eventually make their way down to the vault, the armory. This is the big place that they need to get into.
I'll say this. I think as much as they spent on this series, you said $60 million, it feels underfunded for this ending because I keep waiting for the Bowery people to show up. We're going to see Winston gave the Bowery Queen a whole lot of suits, and we're later going to find out those suits are costumes so the homeless Bowery assassins can sneak into the Continental. And they use the coin press to make coins for all those Bowery guys to have gold coins so they can get into the Continental.
Finally, the coin press comes into play.
So there's all these Bowery people and then all of these other people, because even though the button under Cormac's desk was broken, Cormac just goes to another red button and pushes it, where we get this montage of every crazy assassin ever, like a sumo guy inhaling cocaine off of a knife, a guy in a metal mask that I briefly wondered, is this a reference to Lord Humongous from Mad Max? Is it a Mel Gibson intersect? But that would be a full hockey mask, but it felt like a Mad Maxian kind of mask on this guy. So we have all the crazy assassins. We should have all the Bowery people. We should have basically like the climax of Attack of the Clones of Jedi versus battle droids, only it's Bowery assassins versus crazy assassins, and we never get that.
No.
We never feel very populated.
No, but you mentioned Attack of the Clones. I'm going to bring back what it reminded me of, Smokin' Aces. This is Smokin' Aces. Weird assassins. They all have their little quirk. They all have their little character traits. We don't know too much about these ones here in the Continental, but we keep our eyes on the ones. The guy doing blow or doing something off of the big knife. We still have Hansel and Gretel running around. The ninja guy.
Yeah, there's so many around. And De Silva, she took a gold coin off one of the people at the regular hotel and uses it to book a room at the Continental. She's wandering around during all this fighting. Somebody says, "Aren't you a cop?" And she pummels this guy to death with her bare fist. And it's like, "I used to be a cop. So now you're just, what, homicidal?"
Oh, that old trope.
Yeah.
When did she throw the badge away? Come on. Really?
Well, there was a scene where she went over to her lover's house because it seemed like the idea here is she's ready to throw it all away. She was about to expose their affair in front of his wife and family. I think they telegraphed it a little bit, but yeah, she really turns a corner and she's very mission driven from this point on. But what's bothering me visually is this show's called The Continental. We're finally in the Continental. We're finally getting fight scenes. And everything basically takes place in what looks like the same hallway. Shouldn't this hotel have different looking floors, maybe different themes, slightly different something just visually to let us know that this is going on multiple floors, not just around the one corner?
Why did we never return to the party room where they had the New Year's Eve party?
Because that was shot in a real location, and these are all sets.
I don't know where the money went, especially in Budapest, where that dollar can really stretch, but it does not feel like it's up here on the screen during this climax. To the point where when they're outside the armory, they just have Cormac turn off the lights and yell, "Shoot those assholes," and we just see a bunch of muzzle flare on a black screen.
Right, we get the Reservoir Dogs standoff. In Reservoir Dogs, we actually see the shots, but not here. They turned it off. Despite the fact that this is clearly R-rated.
But, you know, there is some fun to be had here. Lemmy, again, one of my favorites. He goes to the mail room, and there's one of those suicide girl women with all the tattoos in, like, the 50s outfit there. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, everything's going to be okay." And then she starts kicking his ass. He's like, "Why do people keep punching me in the throat?"
Well, I wondered about this because I love the switchboard of the John Wick universe where they chalk up how much somebody's worth if there's a bounty on them and they send out contracts using that old technology. Is that switchboard in the Continental?
I don't know, because the switchboard had like dozens of women. This is one woman. Is she like the one person who's stationed at the Continental and the switchboard itself is elsewhere?
Right. She's dressed like a switchboard operator in this universe.
Mm-hmm. But we do get the introduction of the tubes here, the pneumatic tubes that are running through the hotel, like a big bank.
I find this part very clever. I think it's super clever that in the old school ways of John Wick's universe, they use these tubes in the hotel to deliver messages. Or in this case, to deliver like a little wanted slip, a screenshot of Sharon and Winston, and it says, you know, big reward, or something like that.
But this is where Hansel is going to take out Lemmy. He's going to throw a grenade in those tubes and blow up where Lemmy is. And I knew Lemmy was dead meat. I just knew Lemmy was going to be dead meat out of everyone here. And yeah, he is.
I find it strange that he's the only one to die, though.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, is that I felt like save Frankie's death for here. You know, why bring poor Lemmy into this if we need a impactful death right before the big finale? I mean, Lemmy was nice enough and we got a little bit of time with him, but I feel like Winston's overreacting to the loss of Lemmy based on what we know of their relationship.
I agree.
Right, because we only got a little bit of time with Lemmy, and when you do these kind of stories, you have to kill somebody who's impactful, or you kill everybody. That's kind of the way it works when you write this kind of thing. If Ocean's 11, which sometimes I feel like this last part wants to be, if Ocean's 11 had just killed Casey Affleck, like, how would you feel about that? You'd be like, what? It's so random. I'll bring it back to Walking Dead. They killed Abraham. Everybody was like, that's inconsequential. We don't care about Abraham. Then they killed Glenn. That means something.
Yeah, I agree. But there's just so much going on because they've set up all of these various character arcs. So they try to pay them off in the end. Because we've had Hansel and Gretel this whole time, and Lou stayed back at the dojo, so Yen and Miles are together, and Miles is trying to talk Yen out of using a suicide vest, and she's like, I just want to be with Frankie. And so kind of coming full circle on her arc. And then she is going to be on the roof fighting Gretel, while Miles is in a room fighting Hansel, which does have one of the best shots of this whole series. Is like they break a mirror and you see Hansel going after Miles and you see it reflected in like 50 different shards of mirror.
The Lou Miles versus Hansel fight is good. Miles takes a pool cue to the chest there. Hansel's about to kill them both. Then you know who's going to save him? The orphan kid.
The orphan kid comes in with the gun. It's a good fight scene. It goes on a little too long, and I feel like the twins have become almost T-1000s. They're unkillable for a moment here.
It's kind of funny because Miles was fighting Hansel, and Miles loses. And Miles is about to die. And then Lou shows up, and Lou saves him. And now I'm like, oh, it's on. You got the two karate masters now. You can't take that, Hansel. But Hansel does, and beats them both. And then the orphan throws down a gun, and our anti-gun person has to blow Hansel's head off. It's such a weird message.
There's your arc, Lou. Congratulations. Now you can take a life.
Everything you stood for, thrown away for what?
Meanwhile, Gene is still out there flirting with the lady, taking shots across the building, but he's not killing anybody of consequence. When we get the big fight that's going to be on the rooftop between Yen and Gretel, we don't get any help from Gene. This is actually a good fight, though. Did you know this? I looked this up about Gretel. This woman is a contortionist, this actress. So she's able to pull off these incredible moves with her body and putting her up against Yen. I really, really dug that.
I liked it. I wished I could have seen it a little better because it's at night on this roof in the pool. I have a little trouble enjoying the full richness of the fight just because I don't feel it's filmed very well.
Yeah, and it's impressive, but it's also kind of impressive in the way that, like, I've always had a problem with Jackie Chan. Nice guy, whatever, but people always say, you know, he's doing his own stunts. It's like, right, but he's also doing his own acting. You know, he's not the greatest thespian. And this chick, yeah, she's here because she is a contortionist. She really doesn't have any lines. I don't think she speaks throughout the entire series.
Neither one of them do.
So, yeah, it's fine. Hire a contortionist because that's what we need out of this role.
I actually think Yen gives a decent performance emotionally because she does speak in Vietnamese and we do have the loss of Frankie for her. I think she sells it adequately. Don't clear off a space on your shelf for the Emmy, but you're fine. But yeah, Gretel is exactly what Gretel needs to be.
But she seems to have the upper hand, and they go underwater on the rooftop pool, and we're not sure who got the best of who. We see some stabbing going on above the surface, and then Gretel rises. So for a brief moment, we think that Yen lost, but nope.
She has Yen's suicide vest slung over her shoulder, and so Yen detonates the vest.
Which we knew we had to come full circle with that suicide vest. They set that up so long ago, and she's been wanting to blow herself up this entire series. In the end, she decides she'll blow up Gretel instead.
But just when I think things are building to the final climax, we get a weird left turn to prolong everything. Cormac goes to the mysterious 13th floor where he meets math wizard Orson, who is not a character we needed at this point.
You wanted to see more of the hotel, Justin. Here we are now in the computer room with the techie. And why?
Someone has to back up the servers, even in the 70s, I guess.
I guess. And this part pisses me off, I think, the most out of all this, because I've said it a couple times. They went out of their way to be period accurate for so much of this. Then all of a sudden, for no reason, they introduce, like, glowing touch identification palm print technology. Like, there's no way that was available in the 70s.
Yeah, the self-destruct trope.
Yeah.
I love that the hotel locked down like the purge is coming. When they start the self-destruct, like all these metal grates close down. But yeah, I agree with you, Justin. Where are they getting this handprint tech from?
Mm-hmm.
I can go with a lot of things in this assassin world, but come on, the assassins almost all had flip phones.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't futuristic. The assassins weren't pulling out laser guns in the John Wick movies, so why in the 70s would they have monitors absolutely everywhere? I mean, maybe in Vegas they did. I can maybe go with the TV screens everywhere, but Yeah, the touchscreen self-destruct. Even, again, is there supposed to be more comedic because a hotel having a self-destruct is ridiculous?
Maybe. But even the self-destruct is manual, right? Like, we see some tanks of liquid that are emptying, so we know something's gonna happen. That's not high-tech. It was unnecessary to add this little bit of high-tech to this world. It was jarring.
And it's a jump, because this is Mel's final rage, and it's him admitting that he's lost the hotel. There's only 4 people on Winston's team. You're telling me he can't get his assassins to take them out? Mel, apparently, I thought he controlled all the crime. Now, we do get a scene where he's asking the high table for help, and he's not going to get any. But then he's pissed at the high table for not giving him the resources to fight back. So he just kind of gives up and he goes to this 13th floor. And this is it. This is going to be the end of it.
Yeah, because he's like a $2 million reward for the person who kills Winston. And yeah, we get Orson there like, but isn't Winston the only one who knows where the coin press is? And Cormac's like, I'm so far beyond caring about this coin press MacGuffin that we've been chasing this whole movie. I just want Winston dead. But I'm just waiting for Winston to get in front of Cormac and have that showdown. But now De Silva gets Winston at gunpoint and is like, you killed my family, prepare to die. I'm going to douse you with lighter fluid and set you on fire because you set my family on fire. And he looks up at her and like the lamest thing ever, I'm sorry. This whole thing is just not playing. If this series thinks it's emotional, it's not. If they're playing for humor, they're playing it too straight.
No, and they give Winston lines like, this is more than vengeance, this is justice. Yeah, well, KD just wanted that justice, but is denied because?
Again, like you said, Deus Ex Machina, it's real lucky that Jean can just see right in that room where she was about to set Winston on fire, but be bad enough in aim, he misses the kill shot and just wounds her so Winston can go off and fight more.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing isn't getting to the climax fast enough. And it's not keeping me engaged either, because every time they start a scene, they just switch over to something else.
It's really jerky. I think you put your peg on this. The pacing is weird. This climax can't get momentum. It feels like 30 minutes into this longest episode, 98-minute episode, we're starting a giant climax war here, and it never feels like more than just Winston and Sharon running around killing a few extras in hallways. Meanwhile, I literally wonder how long they had Mel for, because he only goes to like 5 different sets. And he only interacts with like 5 different people. You know, he talks to Sharon, he talks to Orson, he talks to the adjudicator, he talks to those guys in the first speech, but he's really either in his office or on the 13th floor or in a couple of these battle scenes. But it feels like they didn't have Mel for all that long, and they had to keep him bottled up till this last episode.
Yeah, very much feels like that. I mean, and it makes sense for his character that he never leaves the Continental. I'm fine with that. But it does feel like it was value-tained to Mel's time.
I would have liked to see Mel throw down. He doesn't get into any fight scenes here.
No, the most we see out of him is when he bashes in the cellist's head, and that's the most action we get out of him.
Oh, he also takes out this guy, Orson. After Jens blows up Gretel, Orson gets this line, a monumental conclusion. It's supposed to be very dramatic, and then, that sets Mel off, and he throws him a beating.
This is where they get to find Lemmy dying, and Lemmy tells Winston there's C4 in my bag, and he uses it to send it through the pneumatic tubes, and Sharon is on the 13th floor saying, send it to this room, because he can see it on the monitors, and blowing everything up. I do love, I don't know if it's one of those women, like the switchboard operators, or if it's the computer talking, because since the building's on self-destruct, I think I'm in Star Trek anyway, but some female voice says, excessive structural deformation in process.
They use a lot of interesting words in the show. Defensionism. A lot of Latin that I had to look up.
Or Harry Potter speak. It's what it sounds like to me, but...
But we do go down to the subway for our climax. Cormac's on the run. You know, again, this is where Frankie's heist began, was in this underground train yard area, and it's where Cormac has his escape train. Winston's gonna come down and have the final confrontation, but he loses. Mel has got the upper hand. Mel's gonna kill him.
Yeah, until KD shows up again. And we're to believe, well, they give just enough of a pause to make us think that maybe she's going to shoot Winston. No, that's not going to happen. Instead, she fires. Mel gets a good line here when he's like, what, you missed him from there? And then he realized that he's the one that's been shot.
Well, the reason she does that is Mel confessed his sins. Because bad guys love to monologue. He tells Winston in these last moments, oh, I told you that apartment was going to be empty, but I knew people were in there all along, and I did this so you did something you couldn't come back from. DeSalva hears all this and is like, so really, you're the one who killed my family, so I'm going to kill you and finally forgive Winston, who, you know, actually threw the Molotov cocktail.
Sloppy.
I did something to you, didn't I? I like that as Mel's last line. That's a good one.
Yeah, but I mean, the motivation here is weak. I mean, I understand that DeSilva affected her whole life, and we're told that Winston has carried it with him. I don't see that. He gives a half-hearted apology to her. And then Cormac, he's a bad guy. He's done a million terrible things over the course of the last 30 years. Why would this even be something he remembered at all? Why would he be sitting here confessing to it?
I think it's the final, you know, I've been one up on you your entire life, and I'm going to let you know that before I kill you and escape in my super train moment. But
yeah, I mean, I understand what they're doing. I'm just saying it doesn't make much sense that a character like Cormac would remember that particular incident in any detail whatsoever.
No, it's far more believable to me that it would be for Cormac like Raul Julia in Street Fighter. That was the most important day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, very succinctly.
Speaking of lines, we get one last one, be seeing you. Another reference to the John Wick universe.
Yep, a little wink to remind you that we're actually in the John Wick universe in case you forgot.
I kind of, again, do get a laugh. This is obviously intentional humor here, where Winston has to race to save the hotel. We know it's not going to blow up because it's going to be his hotel. He has to save his hotel now. He runs in and stops the countdown with seconds to go, just like every self-destruct ever. How did he do it? We pan down. He cut off Cormac's arm. It has his handprint. I liked that little bit.
I thought that was cute, but again, the self-destruct thing, why would we even activate it? It doesn't create any tension for us as viewers because we know the hotel is not going to blow up.
Yeah. Unless for a minute you let yourself believe that maybe the Continental as we know it was completely rebuilt, but who cares? The idea of the Continental is going to be there in the future. So yeah, and it raises questions of how did he get back up to the 13th floor so quickly? I think the clock was at like 4 seconds when we last saw him in the tunnel. And how did he have time to cut off a hand that quickly? Questions we're not going to get answers to, nor do I really want answers to.
No, instead we just kick into the kind of ending little montage to Baba O'Reilly. We find out all the hotel windows start to open again. We find out who's still alive. Gene's still across the street.
He does get a date with that woman. She's going to ask him out before he leaves. I know you just killed all those people, but I hated that hotel, so why don't we go out to the botanical gardens?
What did you think about that line? I always hated that hotel. I was like, really? Why? Come on, lady.
People falling out of the windows every other day. I mean, I would...
They say things that make no sense in this show. Oh, and we're not done with music because we get What a Difference a Day Makes. And then we get what I feel is the most egregious scene in this show. This is the confrontation between Winston and the adjudicator.
Can you explain it to me? Because Winston now has the gold coin press and Winston has the Continental, and the high table wanted to get rid of Cormac anyway. So it seems like they would be all for Winston taking it over, but she's going to be like, the high table won't talk to you. They don't even know who you are. So he shoots her dead and says they will now.
He kills the adjudicator. He kills a representative of the high table. That's like instant death. I don't understand how he gets away with this.
Yeah, it's not like it's a gangs on the street killing type of thing for respect. He just put a death sentence on his own head, which it's this universe's own logic. Why do this?
Right. He steps off Continental grounds to do it. You notice that he steps off the step so he can, for whatever reason, and I guess the reason to send a message. Why? Because it sends a message that he doesn't want to play with the high table. He's been in fealty to the high table for decades. He says this repeatedly. Everybody says this later in the movies.
The only thing I can think is maybe they were trying to potentially set up a second season, and that would be the contention is now he has the Continental and the high tables after him.
Do you notice that the adjudicator's license plate says swear fealty? SW fealty. Clever.
Yes, I did notice that. And we finally get to see the adjudicator's face. I don't think we even mentioned she has this, like, reverse Phantom of the Opera mask on. It looks like some jaw work. It goes from her temples around her mouth. And in episode 2, she took it off to eat, but we weren't allowed to see what it looked like. Here it falls, and it's like her lips were cut off or something. She just...
Yeah.
She kind of looked like Darkman around the mouth.
There's a background story. It takes 15 minutes. They cut it. It's on the cutting room floor. It was the last subplot.
Could we leave that in and put all of the stuff with the Orphan Master on the cutting room floor instead?
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally in favor of the director's cut version of the Continental if it makes a little bit more sense.
But we're going to end with Winston at the balcony of Cormac's old office, Winston's new office, and back in the New York groove. I do love that song.
Good musical choice.
Though I prefer Ace Frehley's version of it, but, you know.
I prefer Ace's as well, but you don't hear this one too often. I felt some of the songs were a little cliche, some were a little too on the nose. This one, I give a recommend to New York groove.
But do you give a recommend to the series? Justin, Jason, do you recommend the Continental from the World of John Wick? Justin.
Like I said earlier, I've not necessarily been enjoying my time in the John Wick world. The movies have done just enough to keep me interested, and they've been spaced out far enough that I can fool myself into going in and being a little bit excited, and they do just enough to keep me sitting there. So when I heard we were doing this, I kind of got that feeling of dread again, where it's just like, oh, we're doing this again. And then it started to hit me that, like, we're doing John Wick without John Wick, the one thing that would get me to want to watch this. So I'm going to give it a shot. And I will say there were some good things here. The musical choices I found mostly fun and appropriate, if not ironic, like we had said earlier, but it made it go by a little faster. The music kept it upbeat. Some of the action scenes were fine, but at the end of the day, I don't necessarily need Winston's backstory. I don't need to fill out this universe more on the fringes. It's just not something that interests me. And the whole idea of this movie, miniseries, whatever it is to hit you in the nostalgias, right? It's for guys like us to watch this and get a little bit of nostalgia for TV commercials from our youth and cartoons and stuff like that to hit you in the feels. And I think it says something about this show that the thing that hit me the most in the feels and kind of came out of nowhere and awoke something in me that I didn't remember, but it painted a really vivid picture in my head, was a scene we didn't even talk about. At one point, they go to steal a telephone van. And when I saw that van with that, it was like a Ma Bell with that khaki green color on the side and the blue stripe, like that just really awoken something from my childhood. It's like, I remember seeing those vans all over the place when I was a kid. And then they just kind of quietly went away because Ma Bell wasn't a thing anymore. And if that's going to be the biggest thing that sticks with me from this, something went wrong along the way. And I can't necessarily pin it down on any particular actor or any writing. I think it's just too much going on, and it could have been pared down into a feature-length show. It didn't need to be a miniseries, which kind of sucks because, to be honest with you, in this day and age of streaming and where we get overly long, stretched out seasons of things, I wouldn't mind more people taking a shot at a streaming miniseries. If you've got enough story to play out over the course of 4 or 5 hours, hey, do it. I'm for that. I'll take that over 16 episodes of 45 minutes long any day. But they didn't have that here. This felt like they had a movie, then they're like, well, that's not enough. Let's make it longer. oh, we almost have a TV series. Oh, we don't have enough for that, but we're going to leave all this crap in. And it just makes it muddled. I think if you pared this down and somebody edited it into an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, there might be something decent here. But for me, it's not there on screen, and I can't recommend this.
Jason.
And Justin, I really am right there with you. For my first review, I'm so grateful to be here as a host. I wanted to really love what we were going to do. I am a fan of the John Wick movies. I'm looking forward to more of them. This series, I'm going to say it shouldn't have been this, but this is what we get. There are a million prequels, sequels, spin-offs that should have been different stories when we watch them. They're all in the Now Playing archives. I'm certain that this one will be as forgotten as Hannibal Rising or The King's Man. There is a difference between world building and world explaining, and to me, this is just a classic case of over-explaining the universe. It giving us backstory of minor characters that we didn't ask for, trying to fill in every little blank because they have the runtime. The word I kept looking for and I found it's demystifying to me. It demystifies the series a little bit, demystifies a little bit of the Continental. And because it's a prequel, it's not adding anything to the story because we've seen this kind of thing before. I dropped the name Solo, the Hobbit trilogy. You could argue that the Boba Fett stuff that they've done in the Star Wars universe, there's a reason why you take those kind of stories and you put them into books, because it just can't make for an exciting prequel film or television. So that's a format where you can justify taking a deep dive into a character's origins. Sometimes I think a little bit of mystery, simplicity makes a character effective, and you don't need to go any further than that. So there was so much in this series that was just a little unnecessary. The 3-episode structure, it's still a struggle with pacing. It stretches out what could have been a tight, maybe 2-hour John Wick prequel. Now it's a bloated 4.5 hours. You break it down, it's a classic 3-act story, but every 90-minute episode is an act, and there's too much filler, and there's not enough momentum. So by the time the finale rolls around, which is the 3rd act of the 3rd episode, it's just too late, and they've already lost me. So we've already discussed the setting, how they try to make it feel like a lived-in world, and sometimes we were convinced and a lot of times we weren't. We talked about the music choices. That to me never felt like John Wick. The movies don't do music that way. I get why they were doing it here, but I didn't really love it. The characters, the ones that are in the movies, they don't really behave or act like they do in the movies. The assassins, they're a different breed than we see in the movies. And I think that they were trying to branch out, but again, it's a prequel. Are you telling me that this all existed before, but it never existed later? There's too many disconnected subplots. The cigarette machine in the dojo, the Vietnam stuff that affects every character but Winston. It all distracts from what we thought was just going to be the Winston arc, the Winston story. So when it's over, I don't look at the Winston and Sharon characters and say, I will be seeing you later in John Wick, because these aren't them. So in the end, I got a show that's trying to be stylish, trying to be relevant. It's definitely more surface than substance. I have to give it a not recommend. It falls short of what makes John Wick a solid franchise, and it just doesn't enhance your enjoyment of the movie, so you can skip it.
I agree with what both of you said. For me, this just feels like so many TV spin-off properties. I don't care if it's Marvel or Star Wars or Gung Ho or The Crow. It's inessential. It feels like a cash grab made not because there was a story someone was burning to tell from a universe, but because there was money to be made. And you might say that about every sequel and every spin-off, but I disagree. I think you can see, like when Brian Fuller went to Hannibal, or the Bates Motel TV series that was on A&E, where somebody is inspired by a universe and says, I have a story I want to tell in that universe, versus the corporate mandate of, let's make product. And do you have a concept for a product that we can put on our another channel of distribution? And that's how I feel about so much of this. I am so unenthused about the upcoming Alien television series. And I love the Alien movies, but fuck you for making another goddamn TV series off a movie. I'm sick of it. The mean average of TV series based on movies is so low that if you happen to make a good one, I'm probably not going to watch it because you're in a shit genre to begin with. And here you're doing this with John Wick, on a lesser budget with lesser stars, and I use the term stars very loosely for this cast, talented as several of them are, only Mel Gibson has marquee appeal, and that is, shall we say, tarnished? But the biggest problem is, to me, it never felt like John Wick. It feels like John Wick cosplay. It feels like you've got some of the same names and some of the same accessories like gold coins, but it never has the feeling, and it never brings the action. The action here is decent, but the John Wick movie's action is exceptional. And this is well choreographed at times. We've talked about it. Yen's fights are pretty good. Some of the gunfights are pretty good. The car chase is pretty good. Okay, so there's some stuff in here that's pretty good, but it's so much lesser than the rest of John Wick. But you know what? Nothing in this series is really awful either, is where I found myself. I would never have sat down to choose to watch a TV series based off the John Wick universe that had nobody involved. If you even had Ian McShane as a narrator, I would have been more interested than by having nobody involved except Mel Gibson. So when I'm watching it, I'm there like, the only thing I'm hating are the two women's subplots. And it's not because they're women, but because they have bad subplots. Lou and her father's legacy is the worst thing about this miniseries. And De Silva's mysterious hunt for Winston was time wasting. And the payoff didn't justify how much time was spent with that hunt. And how much time we spent with De Silva and the male cop the entire time. It just didn't pay off well enough. But I kind of like the ragtag crew. I like Miles. I like Lenny. I like Gene. Even though this new actor isn't my Winston, he doesn't act like my Winston, he doesn't sound like my Winston. As just a guy on a vengeance quest to avenge his brother, he was fine. So if you are just looking for an action series and you're not very discerning, then I think this might do, but I gotta give it a very weak not recommend.
I did not know where you were going, man. I mean, I thought maybe he was going to go weak recommend. That's really what it was. You sounded so convincing at the end, too.
I mean, I toyed with it because I didn't hate the series. I found myself mostly entertained, but was it worth a 4.5 hour investment when there's some things that are so bad and a lot that is so stupid? You know, the bad is really bad and the good is okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be weak not recommend for me. But Justin, I got to ask you, you don't want more John Wick in general and no spin-offs specifically, so you must just be jazzed about Ballerina in a few weeks.
Out of the two, the Continental was the one that I had hope for. So, yeah. I may need to adjust my attitude so I don't go in sour on it going in. I'll give it a fair shot. But yeah, my excitement level is set at a low simmer right now.
I gotta say, I was very unenthused for the Ballerina. But now that I see the people involved with it, Ana de Armas as the star, Keanu Reeves is back, Ian McShane is back, Lance Reddick in his final role is back, Gabriel Byrne, Norman Reedus, Angelica Houston, who had that cameo in that previous John Wick film, as running it. And while the director, Len Wiseman, really gives a bad taste, rumor has it that Stahelski came in and refilmed a whole bunch of shit because what Wiseman did wasn't any good. So, maybe?
Yeah, there's some hope.
I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the next few weeks trying to get to the bottom of who directed Ballerina. But I am actually really looking forward to it myself. I think Ana de Armas is great. All the cast that you mentioned, Arnie, is great. And you're right, the creative people involved, with the exception of Len Wiseman, they're all John Wick people.
And in case people don't know who Len Wiseman is, we've reviewed most of his movies when we did the Underworld retrospective series and also the remake of Total Recall. I do believe we are just going to continue having done his entire filmography.
Don't forget Live Free or Die Hard.
I try to forget Live Free or Die Hard.
We've done his whole filmography. We are the Len Wiseman podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will be covering that in about a month. Why are we covering the Continental so much earlier? Because we are going to theaters. Jason, you're going to be joining us sooner than that. You are also going to be joining Brock and me with Karate Kid Legends.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a huge Karate Kid fan, more of a Cobra Kai fan, I think, now than I am the movies. And I know Cobra Kai is not going to be connected to this new film, but who doesn't love Jackie Chan? Who doesn't think Ralph Macchio is a stand-up guy? And I know nothing about the new young actor that they have in the role of the Karate Kid, but we'll find out more about, I think his name is Ben Wong.
Yes, so that'll be in just a few weeks. Next week, Brock, Marjorie, and I are going to be going back to the Final Destination retrospective series with Final Destination 6 Bloodlines. In the meantime, this Friday, if you are a platinum level donor, Stuart, Justin, and I reviewed Ghost in the Shell, the new movie. We weren't going to do this one. It was sort of direct-to-video, but we had a listener write in to Stuart and say, hey, I saw this in theaters, and so you guys should cover it. And the appeal moved Stuart. He decided, why not? He rearranged our schedule and threw in a fourth movie for our platinum donors. Ghost in the Shell, the new movie, is kind of the end of a TV series and kind of a reboot vision of Ghost in the Shell, and a lot of things to talk about. I know we all had very strong reactions with this one.
Yeah, that one will be interesting.
So I hope you can join us at the platinum level donation. You can find all the details at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. Thank you for your support of Now Playing, and thank you for listening to Now Playing. And Jason, thanks for joining us as a host.
Thank you.
Justin, thank you as always. And until next time, no more guns, John. No more bullets.
John Wick, excommunicado in effect in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing's John Wick retrospective series. We hope you've enjoyed the show.
Well played, old friend.
For more movie review podcasts, visit the NowPlayingPodcast.com archives. There you'll find hundreds of film reviews, including Die Hard, the Jason Bourne series, Constantine, Kingsman, Machete, the Marvel Comics movies, and more. And come back each week for another new movie review.
You got out once. You dipped so much as a pinky back into this pond. You may well find something reaches out and drags you back into its depths.
Now Playing relies on listener support to keep operating.
Let's go to the vault.
We have released over 150 donation podcasts. Available there are series like The Matrix, the Quentin Tarantino films, Planet of the Apes, Jurassic Park, Aliens, and much more. Links are available from NowPlayingPodcast.com.
I need your help.
After this, we are less than even.
You can also join our crowdfunding campaign to help our show grow. Patrons of $10 or more get a new exclusive movie review every month, plus even more perks, including one where you can pick a movie for our hosts to review. Find the details on our website.
You have no idea what's coming to you.
Also at NowPlayingPodcast.com/book, you can order Now Playing's film review collection, Underrated Movies We Recommend. This book has 125 reviews about films you probably haven't seen, but you should.
Oh, and remember, you owe me. You don't want me owing you.
You can also follow Now Playing on Facebook and Twitter. There, the hosts post new episode announcements, movie reviews, and contests where you can win movies and soundtracks.
Tell me, Mr. Wick, is this a formal event or a social affair?
Social.
You can also help out Now Playing by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. A link to Now Playing's iTunes listing can be found at nowplayingpodcast.com.
I'll try and do the same.
Now Playing's John Wick series is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
You are now in the presence of the motherfucking king!
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
You do realize that I'm management now, right? So I don't go around shooting people in the head.
Now Playing is edited by Heath, Santiago, and Arnie.
Sometimes you gotta cut a mother.
Now Playing's John Wick series credit narration by Brock.
Shall I announce you?
Yes, please.
The John Wick films and all the audio and music used in this show are the property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
Mr. Wick broke the rules. Do you understand the repercussions if he survives?
The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media Incorporated.
What do you say?
Enough.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2025, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
You done, Diggo?
We're done.
Let me just say the name again. Cormac O'Connor, played by Australian Mel Gibson.
Sounds like a Mortal Kombat villain.
Ermac,
there you go.
That's what does it for you.
But then that movie producer nods at somebody else, who then walks past and nods at somebody else, and it's reminding me of that moment in Johnny Dangerfield where finally...
Johnny Dangerously.
The mob boss goes, "No more nodding!"
Johnny Dangerously, Arnie.
Oh, it's reminding me from that scene in Johnny Dangerously.
Reminds me of a scene from an old John Ritter movie called Skin Deep, where I don't remember the plot of it.
Yes!
Great movie.
I remember Skin Deep, and I know what you're talking about.
Yep, there's a scene where he's getting it on with a woman and he's got a glow-in-the-dark rubber on.
Chelsea Field.
Yep, and somebody else comes in with a different one and all you see is two flopping members glowing in the dark.
More, I think his was like green and the other guy's was red, and you hear lightsaber sound effects.
Skin Deep gets a recommend. Sorry, I spelled it for the future review.
That was the most important day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Very succinctly.
Mel could have pulled off that line.
Raul Julia pulled off that line. In a shit movie, Raul Julia pulled off that line.
He did. But I think Mel could have done it either. Raul Julia better than Mel.